for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
And there is the man in the flesh. Here we are on a King's birthday long weekend. It's actually not his birthday though, is it? So, you know, but anyway, that's just the way it ends up, I think.
Yet another fake celebration.
Yeah, Roger. Yes, fake, full of fakeness. Although, Bruce, it does have some special, there should be a special mention for today. And I was quite fortunate, I consider myself blessed, that I was actually invited to a more prominent person's 90th birthday. And I'm pretty sure this person has a lot more credibility than the King. And that's dear Edna Tate. God bless you, Edna. And happy 90th birthday for today, Edna. And it was an absolute pleasure spending the day on Saturday with you and your wonderful family and extended friends. There were some great people there. So Edna Tate, happy birthday, love, and hope you have a great actual birthday day today as well. Much more celebratorily than the King's birthday, Edna.
Now, look at that, Mark. Carla's pinged in, which makes me wonder, did we get our time wrong?
Yeah, what's going on, Carla? Have you got a public holiday in Bali too? I don't know. What's going on there? Good to see you. Good to see you, Bali. Thank you. And Philip, as usual, good on you guys jumping in, showing us that you're there. So Carla's streaming on, going on X. That's good. And Philip there, I think Philip's on Cafe Lockdown's Rumble. I'm not sure if it's cafes or mine. I think it's Cafe Lockdown Rumble. Yep. So it's all going well. Nothing yet from the YouTubes, but that's not always that. Not prominent like the Clo Rumble, which usually gets quite a few viewers. So thanks again to Michael Gray Griffith and the Clo network of Clo Media. There we go.
Always thank you, Michael, for the platform. Thank you very much.
Yep. Butterfly Heart. G'day. Happy birthday to Edna. Yeah, I'm not sure if she gets time to watch the podcast, but there you go. So afternoon, everybody. So yeah, good week. So it was a nice weekend. Yeah, long weekend, good. And yeah, I hope everybody enjoyed it. We might get a few more on, seeing that might be people not coming home from work and doing other stuff. So we'll see how we go. But anyway, we'll just do our normal bit and get into it and see where the show leads us and see what you've got to bring us there, brother. And I haven't got that much to bring, but we'll just get into it now. What do you reckon?
Yep. And just a thought before you do, maybe you should interview Edna Tate. Would she be up for that?
Yeah, I've had John and Edna on a couple of times on a night time and that, but I've got to get their sound and that working. I'm going to do it on the laptop. But yeah, I've got a lot of time for John and Edna Tate. They're amazing, patriotic Australians in there. Well, Edna is now a nonagenarian and John is an octogenarian because he's younger than Edna. So there we go. But so she's a nonagenarian. We had to look that up to see what people in their 90s are.
A nonagenarian nonna, by the sounds.
Yeah, well, multi nonna. We've got 34 great grandchildren and women's stack of there's definitely contributed to the fertility rate the Tates have in between their two families. So there you go. So no, good on them. Love them dearly. Very patriotic, very strong Christians. Been a great support for me, and bless them both. But anyway, let's get the show rocking, brother. Let's get the show rocking. So just wanted to make people aware of this little YouTube on Australians for Better Government, a conversation between President Stephen Tripp and Dr. Christopher Reynolds. Christopher Reynolds is a historian. He's an author. He's a very knowledgeable guy, and there's no conflict of interest anymore, Bruce, because we had our annual general meeting for the Australians for Better Government last week, and I actually did not recontest my position for vice president just for personal reasons. I did have to make some just some changes about pulling back on things and just burning the candle at both ends is a bit much. So I'm no longer on the committee. I'm still a member of Australians for Better Government because I do believe what they're doing is good stuff. What they're trying to do is good stuff. But I did want to share just a little bit of probably 3 or so minutes of this bit of a conversation just to encourage people to see what they think and jump on board and watch the whole lot. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this, Bruce, before we get kicking.
But let's start off conceptually. When you're talking about political philosophy, I called you up and I said to you, mate, I've got this idea of doing a fortnightly podcast where we talk about political philosophy. And you said, yes, please. Why did you get so excited about the opportunity to do something like this? And why is it so important to you to talk about political philosophy?
All right, let's see. 2 answers to this question. Firstly, it seems that our parliaments are overrun by lawyers. Now, lawyers aren't necessarily, they're not Renaissance people. They're not widely educated. They've studied law and they're pedantic. This is the sentence and this is what was said and, therefore we need to do this. So there's a certain logic with lawyers that is not philosophical. The other side of it is that even with you listen to politicians, money rules what they do. So fiscal policy, and then there's fiscal policy, and then there's fiscal policy. So anything that they say they want to do, it's to do with money. And this is something really serious. And of course, we better have another committee on that. So everything gets moved sideways. It is extremely rare that you ever hear a politician talk about why we're doing something or why we need something or how it expresses the values of the community if they ever realize what they were. So the fact that we're going to talk about how society does and could or should function is a great topic. Now that's part of it. So to get us to actually think about our government, what we want, how we're progressed is a great opportunity. The other thing is when it comes to philosophy, which was your question, how does it all fit in with political philosophy? Well, let me start with this. If people have got a pen, this is worth writing down. There are only 4 questions. Only 4 questions. Anything else that we study, anything else that's been written, anything else that we do, all the interactions that we have, everything else is a response to or gives an answer to one of 4 questions. Those 4 questions are, what is the nature of God? And the second one, what is the nature of man? What is the nature of society? And what is the meaning to life? So it doesn't matter if you pick up a science book, what it is. There's an attempt there to try and understand oneself in that context. So therefore, having said that, many of the leading theologians were also philosophers. The major philosophers all had to do when they were writing, answer those questions. So you'd find their reference to theology or God or society or politics or even the nature of man or even why do we bother to get out of bed type questions of the meaning and the value of life. So it's those issues that when you say, let's discuss political philosophy, I then automatically think about how does our system of government say something to us about our position in the universe, and the humility of a society before creator, our understanding of human nature, human interaction, the value of life, the nature and structure of society. Do we respect laws? Should we respect laws? How do we write laws? And where do we find our happiness or our meaning to life? So that's the simple, since you want me to keep it short, the simple answer to why we're going to jump into this.
Well, there you go.
Mate, you've
Christopher Reynolds doesn't keep things short. If you've ever heard Christopher
I wait
Reynolds
any
talking,
time and say,
he doesn't keep things short. And that podcast goes on for about an hour and a bit. And if people want to watch that, it's an interesting conversation. And obviously, it's on the YouTube, the ABG, Facebook, and all that. If you have if you're going to want to challenge Dr. Reynolds with anything, you can write some comments in there or whatever. I like listening to him talk. I think, you know, he does raise some good points. He's obviously, as I am, a Christian as well, so he comes from a Christian background. I guess there was no mistakes about that. He does believe in God, and obviously he's a Christian for himself. But very interesting conversations around the political. What is it? Other people that are governing us now, is it do they actually think deep enough, which he doesn't seem to think they do, and it goes back to the why the Constitution was formed. So he's very much in favor of the American system, how America was shaped, and he argues that Australia obviously wasn't shaped in the same way as America. Australia is almost part of a legislated pathway from the British Empire, from Britain. So we're not the same. So as he goes further on, he talks about the populace, being the populace, or what is he called, terra regis, which is rulership under the monarchy. And obviously Australia was seen as terra nullius for a long time, and then obviously that got debated. And he also talks about terra populi, which is the governing for the people, the land of the people. So yeah, interesting conversation. If people want to check that out, I thought I'd share that for some people to look at that from there. So I'm seeing, I'm just going to keep going now because I've seen you've made notes, so you'll probably want to come back to a couple of things. The other thing I wanted to let people know, if they haven't, or I share this on my media, is the Australian Christian Freedom Index is out, and that's put together by the Canberra Declaration, lots of other people, Kurt Marlberg and others, and it basically talks about, and I'll just quickly go over at a glance this here. So between 27 February and 6th April 2026, 10,000 Christians from all 8 states and territories completed the inaugural ACFI survey. Here's what they reported. All states and territories ranked on Christian freedom, 40 documented cases of Christians penalised for their beliefs, 74 laws passed since 2000 restricting Christian freedoms, 9 jurisdictions audited, 6 states, 2 territories plus the Commonwealth. 92% of those respondents say it's riskier today to affirm Christian beliefs publicly than 5 years ago. And stage 5 has been reached on the Brobles internationally recognised 8-stage persecution scale. So that's just it at a glance. That's on Australian Christian Freedom Index, and that's the website, australianchristianfreedomindex.org.au. So, and I don't think many people are surprised about that. I think even non-Christians, I think if you've watched the landscape, I think a lot of people will find you're in the same boat. But anyway, the partners for that put together as the Australian Christian Lobby, Australian Family Coalition, Canberra Declaration, Citizen Go, George Christensen, great guy, Family Voice, and Human Rights Law Alliance. So they're the people that are behind that, and the authors are on that website as well. From there, and just before I do wind up and shoot over to you, Bruce, I did put an article together on my website covering the Henry Nowak and the questions not easily asked. Now, that was a tragic case over there in the UK where Henry Nowak was stabbed, accused of being racist by the person that actually stabbed him, and then he was left to die by police who didn't believe him. So I've written it's quite a lengthy review about that, but I did want to just show this little bit about why they got there. There's a lot of reasons. So this was, and they blocked it unless you've got a VPN. They actually blocked it from other countries, and people that have got a VPN can access this. Is the Hampshire and Isle of Wight Constabulary Race Action Plan 2024-26, and I'll just read this little excerpt. The murder of George Floyd by serving police officers in the USA in 2020 was a pivotal moment for policing in the UK, driving the need for real change. Whilst this tragic event happened in another country, policing across the UK has over many years had a strained relationship with some communities. Nationally, the Police Race Action Plan was created to address the racial disparities and distrust associated with policing, particularly for those of our Black communities. So if anybody wants to check that, I'm pretty sure it's been in the media. I've written quite, it might not agree with everybody. It's from a Christian standpoint, which is what I do my writings from. But I just thought I'd share that there with you guys. So that's me, and obviously, that's come about. Obviously, the what's his name, Keir Starmer, was seen and known to do bow the knee when the George Floyd happened. We saw all around the world, even in our own countries, police and officials bowing the knee, to the whole George Floyd. He was a criminal. He was on fentanyl. Sure, the circumstances weren't great, but he was absolutely glorified. He was actually, not a great citizen. And yet we had a young lad in the prime of his life, from all accounts and purposes, a decent person, was stabbed multiple times by a Sikh individual, but then the family got involved and tried to hide it all as well. And look, ultimately he got a lengthy sentence. His mum, I believe, is still waiting to be sentenced because she hid the murder weapon. The brother was known to lie, and the father. But the worst thing out of all of that is the police reaction is actually disbelieving him, taking the word of someone said, and who knows whether these communities are now told. The first thing you do when police rock up is say that someone's racially vilified you or whatever, and the other person's in trouble. So it's almost guilty until proven innocent. And young Henry, unfortunately, paid the ultimate price of his life, being left to die by police, getting handcuffed and bleeding out and dying, or actually, I think, choking on his own blood in the end of it. But terrible situation. And so there's a big call on lots of other people taking the knee. But one of the other big things is obviously the bias of the media, which I covered in my article. There is the media, all this outrage that was through George Floyd, and most of the mainstream media for days didn't even pick up the story. It was only mainstream media that smashed that story all the way through all the social media, but the mainstream was pretty much silent about it. So anyway, that's an update from me. If people want to jump onto my FCP website, they can check that out as well.
Yes, Mark. Now, you started talking about the Henry Nowak case, and you showed us the backstory, which was that the police reaction to George Floyd was, we need to change so we're not racist. That was basically the subtext there. Only problem with that's not true, because you can get arrested for carrying a bread knife in Britain these days. They literally have kitchen knife control, having shown that, it's not the weapon, it's the weaponeer that's the problem with all of these things. Gun control doesn't work. Well, even knife control doesn't work. So why was his attacker wandering the streets with a knife? Why wasn't he being arrested? Well, the answer is because he's a Sikh, and the Sikhs are allowed to carry knives because that's a religious accoutrement for Sikhs. So in other words, they introduced racist laws to deal with racism. So it's a classic case of what they call positive discrimination. And as I've said many times, anytime you got a double-barreled thing, whether it's what's an example? Can't think of one off the top of my head, but where you got a double-barreled word, the first word is always irrelevant. So African American, doesn't matter if you're African American, you're an American. In this case, affirmative action or positive discrimination, throw away the first word. This wasn't positive discrimination, this was discrimination. And the white boy ended up dead. So they're already racist, and anti-racism laws must, of their own nature, be racist. There's no other way around it. So it's not a matter of whether the laws are racist, it's who's allowed to act in a racist manner and who's not. And it's quite clear here that Indigenous Britons are going to be the victims in their own country. And you might remember the catch cry after the George Floyd death, and you're right, he was a thug with multiple convictions for assaulting women, intoxication. He was actually, the reason he fell foul of the police on the day he died is because he'd just been passing counterfeit money in a store. He was sitting outside in his car in the parking lot, having done that, getting high on fentanyl when the whole thing went down. And the catch cry from that was, "I can't breathe." And "I can't breathe" was taken up around the world. Everybody took the knee and yelled, "I can't breathe." Well, that's what Henry Nowak said as he was dying and handcuffed. He was complaining that he could not breathe. Now, contrast who got the press coverage for that saying and who didn't. Pretty obvious, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was proven, obviously, that Siobhan, there was no racial vilification there, and it was proven that. I mean, does it make it right that he died under those circumstances? No, not saying that. But ultimately, if it's a stark, when you try and compare it, they're worlds apart, and especially in regards to the reaction from authorities and the mainstream media.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned also in the preamble to that I think it was the 8 stages of loss of religious freedoms. I'd caution you saying things like that, because back in the COVID era, I looked at the 7 stages of genocide, which was a similar scale, where they looked at how you convert a free, decent, law-abiding population into the postmaster that's mass murdering people in Polsen in Germany. And I pointed out in a blog post, actually, on the internal departmental website at my hospital, when a couple of the staff members said, "Great news, we're all having a wellness weekend at Bird in Hand Winery, all welcome." And I wrote in "all welcome except us dirty unvaxxed Jews." And then I said, "By the way, we are now at stage 5 of the 7 stages of genocide," and I listed them. So the response to that is, I got a show cause from APRA saying that I was anti-Semitic. So apparently, using scientific scales and pointing out where they headed, in my case, the Holocaust, that in some way was construed as being anti-Semitic. I mean, I just don't even understand the logic, except for the fact, if you say Jew, then you're anti-Semitic, apparently.
Yep, it's pretty much how it goes, mate. Or even Zionist now. You're anti-Semitic if you mention Zionist. Yep, it's everything that's labelled to shut us down.
You want to be a bit careful, is what I'm saying, Mark.
And I'm glad you brought that up, Bruce. I did, just really quickly. I'm glad you actually brought that up, because I do want to share it again, because I just don't know how much money they lost. But Adelaide Hills Winery, Bird in Hand. Did I say that loud enough? Bird in Hand Winery to require patrons, not staff, patrons to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. So they would have gone well in the old Mengels era, Nazi Germany, I'm pretty sure there, Bruce. What do you reckon?
Papers, please. Papers.
Bird in Hand. So I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure they're probably still doing well financially. I don't know, apparently related to someone with the politicians or something. So.
All right. Now, just a couple more comments on the preamble to that before we kick on. You had the 2 commenters there, and at the start of it, one of them said that paraphrasing him, there's too many lawyers in Parliament. And I immediately thought, I wonder what the collective term for lawyers in Parliament is. And I don't know that there is an official one, so I'm going to propose one. I'm going to say that our Parliament is infested with lawyers. How does that feel?
That's I like that. Yes. Yep.
Not only is it infested with lawyers, it's equally infested with union officials and other bureaucratic parasites. The thing that our Parliament has very few of is ordinary, decent members of the Australian society. And I think that's the reason why Pauline Hanson's party is absolutely skyrocketing in the polls. People have suddenly worked out they're not getting represented, and they do want their peers to be speaking for them, not an infestation of lawyers or of bureaucrats. And that's what we currently got.
Agree.
Finally, he listed, there are 4 things about government. There was the meaning of God, the meaning of man, the meaning of society, and the meaning of life, basically. And I reckon they all go down to point 4. They all collapse into point 4. Christians might believe that God is part of the meaning of life, and that then determines how they act, what they think they should be doing in life. So I think they all collapse down into one. And I might note that Topher Field, the excellent commentator that we were discussing in the pre-show, he wrote a fantastic book in the COVID era called Good People Break Bad Laws. I highly recommend it. I've read it. And that sort of answers just because something's a law doesn't mean you have to respect it. And he had, reason enough. In fact, he said, not only should you break bad laws, you're actually obliged to morally. And he had a companion book to that, Good Christians Break Bad Laws, which I haven't read. I read the former one. So there you go.
Yep.
And finally, the whole article there was about why do we need a constitution? And the Americans, of course, have an excellent constitution, probably the best in the world, and have had for, 200 or 250 years. And basically what the Constitution does, it sets the rules out for the government. So the government passes laws to make rules to make laws, but they're only allowed to pass rules that are constitutional. So there's a fundamental basic set of rules that apply to the country, the Constitution, and you can't have laws unless they're in compliance with it. Now, two problems about this. One is Australia doesn't really follow that, and America doesn't either. Because, for example, one of the key things set out in the founding document of the United States when the North and South came together was that it enumerated powers. It said, these are the powers, these are the things the government, the feds, are allowed to do. And it was things like they can collect excise taxes. There's a very limited number of things they're allowed to do. And the American Constitution then explicitly said, anything that's not covered in what we just said, the feds are prohibited from doing. So there's nothing in the Constitution about running an education system, about running a health system, about any of those, mass bureaucracies that have sprung. And of course, it's all been completely ignored. They've just done it anyway. So even having a strong Constitution is not proof against mission creep and the feds growing like all cancers do. Once they start, they just grow. Doesn't matter what the rules are.
Yeah, and just like Australia, and America is still a very strong Christian country. I believe in God. When the founding fathers come together and put that document together, they had a Christian philosophy. A lot of them they brought that around, or an observance of God, because the reason that they strengthened the Constitution is because they know that mankind, we are all flawed, and power gets to the head of people, and that needs to be kept in check, and that's why the Constitution was written like that. And unfortunately, here in Australia, it's not, because we're pretty much just a part of the British. The British Parliament, an act of the British Parliament is how Australia was formed, right? So, and this is why there's much more conversations around what Australians for Better Government are doing, and others, so many other people talking into this, people talking about citizen-initiated referenda to be able to pull back some of that power to the people, we the people, and able to hold them to account, Bruce, because there is not enough of that. We don't have much of an ability to hold them to account.
Yeah, and the American Constitution makes it explicitly clear that the purpose of the Constitution is to limit the powers of the government, not the freedoms of the citizen.
Yep.
Unfortunately, throughout the world, it's the other way around. The government has taken all the powers and they tell the citizens what their freedoms are. It should be the other way around.
100%. I think more and more people are waking up to that, Bruce. I think and that's why we are starting to see a bit of that rise in One Nation. We are starting to see people who have had enough. They've been burnt severely over the last 5 years through the whole COVID debacle. So, maybe not quick enough, but I think people are starting to realise that the government has been given and they've enacted on way too much power, and they need to be reined back in again.
Yeah, they haven't given, they've taken it.
Taken it. Yep, exactly.
They've taken those things. Yeah, that's right.
Yep. Well, that's it for me. Thank you, sir, for that commentary on that little bit of intro. That was helpful and nice. Thank you.
And a final comment again at the start of that. It was about Australians for Better Government. I'm more of a pessimist than you, Mark, and we've discussed this before. I think the only solution to better government is smaller government. I don't think you can have better government. I applaud you for trying. And I've stated in the past, I believe governments are inevitably cancers that just grow until they kill the host. So I don't think you can have a better cancer. I think what you've got to aim for is a much smaller cancer.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, minimalist government. Absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yep. I agree. I don't know if it's me. I don't know if people can tell me. Is Bruce lagging out, or is it me that's lagging out? For some reason, there's a bit of lag there, but I'm not sure whether it's on your side or my side.
I'm seeing nothing with your audio on my screen, so let's just press on, perhaps.
Yeah, the audio is not too bad. It's just that your screen's freezing a bit on my end. I'm just not sure whether it's actually the way I'm seeing it. But yep.
Well, as always, let's just press on.
Yes, sir.
So here's the contents list for the week. So we start with some updates. We've got update on day 101 of the 4-day war, and it's still Groundhog Day, not much changing. I'm going to revisit my Splice inflation indicator. You might remember when I was a kid, the Splice was 17 cents. Now it's 3.50. And I've got a new insight into that, which I'm going to have a look at based on me buying a Splice during the week. And Canberra's hybrid electric fire truck is in the news again, and it's not good news. It's still not working. Kicking on into not easy being green, there's a Tasmanian proposal to save the forests by burning them. So they're going to convert a concrete plant that burns coal. They're going to convert it to burn wood chips. Apparently that's better. So we're going to have a look at that. We had a story in the mainstream media where Pauline Hanson was attacked for not supporting increases in the minimum wage. You might remember we have a central wage fixing system. Now, wage is a price, fixing is the right term. So we have a central price fixing scheme for wages, which is fine if the government wants to do it, but you try and get together with another business and fix wages, you'll be in trouble pretty quick. And I support what Pauline Hanson said, because minimum wages are price fixing for the cost of employment. And as we know, price fixing always leads to shortages. In this case, the price is the wage and the shortage is the job. People lose jobs because of it. We're going to kick on down into health. We've got more side effects of Ozempic, and like I say, all drugs have side effects, and Ozempic seems to have more than its fair share. Perhaps that's what you get when you try and cheat on your diet and try and fix a poor diet with drugs. You still get the same thing if you try and fix poor mental health with drugs too. It doesn't work. You get lots of side effects. And an interesting mini deep dive there into the phenomenon of alpha-gal syndrome. That's making more and more news in the US. And in short, people who are bitten by the Texas Lone Star tick can sometimes develop a red meat allergy. Now, there are certain sections of our wise rulers who think that would be a great thing. So I'm going to deep dive into what alpha-gal syndrome is. That's the name for this acquired red meat allergy. And I've done a bit of learning on that, so I'll pass that on. In the Diversity Divides segment, do you believe it's Pride Month again already?
Yeah, whole month allocated as if they don't have enough. And every month has something in it too, Bruce. So, wow, it comes around quickly, doesn't it?
I'm not talking about the plethora of Pride days. This is a separate Pride month, so I'm going to have a look at that.
Whole month, yeah.
And finally, in the miscellaneous section, a report from a privacy expert that says Microsoft is spying on everything you do, including recording every keystroke and screenshotting every screen. No surprise to me. I'd always assumed that, but I'm going to have a look at that.
Wow, that's a big one there, buddy.
But to start, happy King's birthday, Mark.
Yeah, we're public holiday for that. Yep, thank you.
What did you get up to on the King's birthday?
What did I get up to? Oh, a bit of time with the family. I actually did have a bit of work to catch up on, so I did that. And a bit of reading. Yeah, just not a bad one, mate. Just a cruisy one for me. And obviously on here with you, legend.
Well, I spent the morning hanging around Government House hoping to be called in, but missed out again. So I must say I'm mystified. I still don't know how you get on the honours list. It's obviously not just a random process hanging around outside on the day. There's got to be some other criteria that I'm obviously missing there. So, yep, nothing again for me. What about you? Did you get anything in the honours list?
No. But you have got an honour. Maybe they take into consideration the fact that you're on Wikipedia. Maybe that's the reason. Maybe that's the reason, Bruce. And they go, oh, I don't know. He's already been honoured.
My virtue signalling badges would be my time in jail and Wikipedia. I agree with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you're still far greater character than the people that would be getting these things. But anyway, what about Grace Tame? I mean, bloody hell.
A bit of good news. They seem to have run out of gongs for the COVID Nazis. So they seem to have moved on from that after only 6 years. So that's good, I guess.
Yeah, well, they've probably all moved on, making the most of their multi-six-figure incomes from coming out of their tyrannical management of COVID and into other nice glossy things, Bruce.
Shiny things.
Mm.
Update time. So as mentioned, in the past, I've equated the price rises of real things over periods of time and used them as inflation indicators. And generally, I get a figure of 5, 8, 10% for anything you care to choose. Price of gold, price of silver, price of ice creams. And I've said in the past that, using the splice that I bought at school compared to the splice price now, that's an 8% compound inflation rate over my entire lifetime, pretty much. And one thing I have said is what this illustrates is that the money has changed, not the ice cream. You go and buy a splice, you get a splice. Whereas the money that you're using to buy with it is not performing the same function that the money used to perform. It's not storing value. There's hardly any value still in it. Well, it turns out I was wrong, Mark, because I was in the fuel station the other day and bugger me, they had a pine lime splice there in the frozen ice creams section. So for the first time in decades, and Henley 97, if I could apply for a carbohydrate pass, I bought a splice.
Nice.
And I know the last time I bought one was decades ago, but my memory is really very poor because the thing I got out of the packet was not the splice that I remembered. So what you got there on the left is the splice I bought during the week. And in all fairness, it was $3.50, not $3.69. But I pulled it out the packet. It was this pale, frosty thing. Where has the lime green shell gone? There was barely any colour, and it was more frost than colour. And when you bit into it, the ice cream was much more ice than cream. So what I'm saying here is it ain't the same thing. So my analogy is even worse. So we're not even getting the same ice cream for 20 times the price 50 years later. We're getting a worse ice cream. And there it is. Pale.
Well, what would you call that, Bruce? Because the other thing we talked about was shrinkflation. What would you call that? Crapflation? Or not gazump? No. Actually, I've been good for a while. I haven't had a gazump stroke for a little while. I've been a good boy.
Look, I'm going to go into shrinkflation in just a moment, but the general term in the blogosphere for this sort of decline in quality of everything, products, goods, services, people, whatever, that's called enshittification. It's the basic decline of the quality of everything is the enshittification of society. But on top of that, yes, we do have shrinkflation, because the other thing I noticed was not only was this a pale remnant of what I used to buy, it was tiny. Look at it in my fingers there. Like it's, it's like, so, and I thought, hang on, I know my memory's decades old, but it's smaller. It's worse quality. So I went and asked the Googles, has this pine lime splice got smaller over time? And yes, it has. So historically, the ice cream I was buying as a kid for 17 cents was around 100 mils of ice cream. What you get now out of a splice packet is average of about 75 mils. So they have made it smaller and lower quality. And in fact, it's like a third smaller and costs 20 times as much as it did 50 years ago when I was a particular expert in them. So, yeah, it's not even true that the money's changed, but the splice hasn't. They've both got worse. And that is called shrinkflation. So here's a description of that. Shrinkflation is an economic practice where companies reduce the size, weight, or quantity of a product while maintaining its original price, effectively serving as a hidden form of inflation. So this is yet another way that they hide inflation from us. The products aren't the same anymore on top of everything else. Okay.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, and Richard reckons that Billabongs were better, Bruce, chocolate ones. I think I've said before, I talked about it as my favourite one was Golden Gay Times, but don't hold that against me. And I'm not saying that just because we're in Pride Month, Bruce, right? But I'm just saying that Golden Gay Times, when gay actually meant something other than what they've attributed it to now. But yeah, Golden Gay Times were pretty good.
Love is love, Mark. I love my splices.
Of course it is, yes. Well, you can marry that too. You probably can marry your splice these days, but anyway.
Yes. All right. Second update. Day 101, believe it or not, of the 4-day war. The 4-day war, which, by the way, on day 2 was well ahead of schedule, according to Mr. T. So this is the position we had a week ago, or actually 6 days ago. So Trump said he thinks he will have an agreement with Iran to extend the ceasefire and reopen the strait over the next week. So that's by now. So they'd already slipped, in the week before that, it was like we'll have a ceasefire and agreement, or the war will end tomorrow type of thing, as it has been for pretty much the last 100 days. Well, it slipped during the week. It slipped out to a week or so. That was the current thing. And since then, we've just had the usual. So we've had Israel continuing to break the ceasefire. So Israel bombed Beirut overnight. And Beirut is a red line for Iran. Iran said a ceasefire involves all the theatres of war, all the Gulf countries, and it's a red line. And they said if Israel breaks this the ceasefire by bombing Beirut, then they will retaliate, and they did. So in the last 24, 36 hours, there's been a modest resumption of strikes there, albeit still at fairly low intensity. And that's been the position for weeks and weeks and weeks. Now, apart from that, the phony war just continues. The strait is still effectively closed. There's a bit of tit for tat, and we keep getting told that it'll all be over. And as I mentioned, Donald Trump said he was going to stop Bibi attacking Lebanon. That was part of the deal. But that didn't happen. Bibi just ignored it, as the Israelis always do. And Trump said that's fine. The warring sides have stopped shooting at each other. Well, they're launching missiles and drones at each other, so I don't know if that's it. So apparently a ceasefire doesn't mean a ceasefire. It sort of means more firing than ceasing, apparently. And that's just what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. He comes out with the funniest junk, doesn't he?
Now, here's my strategic summary, basically, for virtually the whole war. It just, nothing changes. We get fed the same stuff every week. Be finished by tomorrow. Fast forward a week, ceasefire's broken. Israel's back to bombing Lebanon, and nothing's changed. So it's Groundhog Day in the Gulf War. And it's getting a bit boring, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Groundhog Day until it's not. Because as we know, things can change really quickly, don't they? Especially depends what they want to distract us from, Bruce, or how much more money they want to give to the industrial complex, so.
Yep. Look, it's not even a ceasefire, but even if it was, ceasefires don't end wars, it just suspends them.
Yep.
The Korean War ended with an armistice in 1953, and North and South Korea are still technically at war. They still have hundreds of thousands of troops facing off at each other across the militarized border, and the threat that the firing will start again. What's that, 70 years later? So you need more than a ceasefire. You need an actual peace settlement, and we know we need that. But I did find a new wrinkle on the thing during the week, just to try and find a new angle. You know, the media always wants something new. Well, here's a new winkle on the Gulf situation. Boom, boom.
Barnacle winkle.
Now, just to read this story, barnacles rapidly accumulate on ship hulls when they are stationary in warm water. Well, there's been ships in the Persian Gulf for more than 100 days stationary in warm water. And so if a ship is moving or only stopping for a few days, then the little barnacles, which in larval form swim around in the ocean, then they fall onto a surface and go, yeah, I'll make a home here. So you can expect after 100 days in barnacle producing waters that all of the tankers that are stuck in there are not only going to be stuck, but they're going to be severely barnacle fouled. And that's important because it dramatically increases drag as they go through the water. I mean, imagine that propeller. That's going to be cavitating and nowhere near as efficient. So even if the war ended tomorrow and all the tankers started up and sailed out, they're probably going to take a 30% increase in fuel to get to wherever they're going the first time. And then pretty quickly, they're all going to have to be dry docked and cleaned. And there's more than 1,000 ships stuck in the Gulf. So again, this is a downstream problem that can't just be undone by opening the strait. There are so many flow-on effects that'll be lengthy and expensive to undo, even if there's no more infrastructure damage.
Yep.
Right.
Watch this space.
Righto. Another update on last week's story where the Indigenous Belgian man was convicted of hate speech and jailed for the crime of quoting accurate figures about immigrant crime rates. And I think the meme on the right really explains the conundrum for the Indigenous peoples of Europe. Do you want to keep going as you are because you're scared of getting called racist and end up like Henry Novak? Or do you want to grow up here and say, this isn't the direction we want to be heading? We don't want this for our country.
Yep. Well, that's what more of us in the West should be doing. But the problem is that we don't have a say because we don't have a right to repeal legislation or bills or stop immigration levels and all this sort of thing, right? So,
and I saw a story during the week which I didn't feature, but it was a scientific paper that looked at the correlation between the public mood on an issue and whether the legislation passed or not. So, for example, the Parliament proposes a bill to do something, and 30% of the population are in favour of it. That doesn't mean it's got a 30% chance of passing. And in fact, if 90% of the population, or let's pick the case of The Voice, if 66% of the population are against a bill, that has no impact on whether it goes through the Parliament or not. And we know this.
100%. And South Australia is a clear example of that. I've written into that extensively myself and others have. So, yeah, I've totally ignored the will of the people and just gone and done their own thing. Yep.
And if you're wondering why one nation's gone from 9% to 31%, well, that might be a reason. People are waking up to this.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, who would have ever thought that you get like 4 people elected to the lower house in South Australia that are one nation and 3 in the legislative council? People are definitely starting to wake up.
And I think Victoria's next on the block because we've got all the problems of South Australia, but worse with crime and overcrowding and mass immigration and cultural changes and housing problems. And I think we're only about 5 months off a state election. And there's a bit of back channels traffic about dumping Jacinda Allen, the Victorian Premier, before the election. And this, by the way, is a cleansing process that Labor in particular does constantly. You know, they get a Dan Andrews popularity level Premier, and they dump them 3 months out, and then they have this honeymoon period where people think there's something new, and Labor gets back in again. Well, I think they're worried now, and there is talk about a leadership change in Victoria.
Yeah, interesting. Let's see what happens. It'll be the massive test for the country for 2028 for sure. I think Victoria will be. I mean, look, Victoria was always more socialist leaning. Victoria, even back to federation, you know, one of the reasons that instigated the whole move to go to federation because of how much debt Victoria was in at the time over 200 years ago. They haven't changed in those 200 years.
Yeah, well, at least we lead the country in something, perhaps.
Okay, so I just know you must love family. You know, to make yourself move over to Victoria. There was no coercion abilities to be able to get her to move over to South Australia, mate. I don't know.
As Napoleon said to his troops back in the 1800s, in the absence of orders, march to the sound of the guns. That's why I went to Victoria.
Yeah, good on you. Well, who better, brother? Who better?
All right, this is our final update. So you might remember at least 2 years ago, in fact, just after I'd been running around Victoria in a diesel-powered 15-tonne fire truck, Canberra rolled out their first trial hybrid electric fire truck and had quite a bit of issues with it early on, to the point where actually it's really a token. It's only a metropolitan truck, so it only does the sort of city stuff. Certainly doesn't go any distance out of Canberra. And its reliability is so bad that it's accompanied by a real fire truck to every call that it does.
Accompanied by a real fire truck.
Not kidding you. Anyway, this story's come out. This is sort of an update on the progress for the hybrid electric Canberra fire truck. Apparently, it's only been operational for 14 weeks out of the last 2 years.
Wow.
And in addition to that, even when it is operational, it's using a lot more diesel than was expected. Probably because the battery is so bad that it's pretty much running on its backup diesel power all the time. So
who would have thought?
No one could have predicted this, Mark.
And what was the price tag again, Bruce? What was it? Do you remember roughly? What was the price tag of that thing?
No, I don't, but it was significantly more expensive than a real fire truck.
It was huge, wasn't it? I remember you covering it when we covered it. Yeah, it was quite a bucket load of money.
So they've had a huge amount of money spent on it. They've got to accompany it by another fire truck to every call. And whatever diesel the hybrid burns is in addition to the real truck. So it's worse in every single case. Now, I did feature about a year ago the case of the fire station in Germany where their hybrid truck actually caught fire and burnt the entire station down, destroyed 6 trucks.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yep. And apparently cement mixers do the same as well, Bruce.
Yes.
We covered a story on that as well. I'm not sure whether that company ended up buying any more of that type of cement mixer truck.
Yeah, Australia's first electric cement mixer truck, committed thermal harikari fairly early on. All right. Now, that could have been in the Not Easy Being Green segment, but it really was an update. So let's kick into Not Easy Being Green. And this story from Australian publisher Joe Nova's excellent blog tells us that one of our largest concrete producers, that's Railton in northwestern Tasmania, is going to reduce their carbon footprint by stopping burning the 100,000 tonnes of coal that they burn every year. It's a big cement plant. And they're going to burn trees instead. So that's how they're going to reduce their carbon footprint. Now, here's some details. One of the largest cement manufacturing sites in Australia has temporarily shut operations as it upgrades its coal-fired kiln to accept alternative fuel sources such as used tyres and sustainable wood waste. Now, during the Industrial Revolution, the upgrade went the other way. They upgraded from wood burning to coal burning. Apparently, we've upgraded again in this case. Might be, you know, those sort of advancing to the rear things that armies do when they're retreating.
But perhaps you know what they're thinking here, Bruce. Perhaps what they're doing, because you know how the wind farms, the wind factories all around our country, they're actually destroying forests. So what they're thinking, maybe, Bruce, is that the tons and tons and tons of concrete cement that goes into the base of those wind farms can actually be manufactured using the trees they chop down to gain access to all those remote areas where they're putting the wind factories, Bruce.
Now, there's a wrinkle in that, because I looked into this, because Britain did this a few years ago. So they had a loophole in the law which said that wood chips were waste wood and were exempt from CO2. Apparently, when you burn wood chips, the CO2 that they produce is invisible to the calculations, apparently. And so, again, what Britain was and probably is still doing is they converted some coal plants to burning what they call biomass, also known as wood, which they were shipping across from America to burn.
What?
And the reason they were doing that is because the wood chips were invisible to their CO2 laws. That's why they did it.
Oh, that's crazy. Goes to show that that should be a story in the ridiculosity section, Bruce.
No one would believe it. Now, I did look into it, and here's what they said about the sourcing of the wood for this. They said, okay, what do we got here? Yep, they're going to source it sustainably by using waste wood from logging. And this is Tasmania, where they do a lot of logging. But they've not actually said, okay, logging what? And much of the logging in Tasmania is native forests. But here's the problem. The thermal content of wood is only about half the content of coal. That's one reason why in the Industrial Revolution they went the other way. So to replace 100,000 tonnes of coal, they're going to need to burn at least 200,000 tonnes of wood chips. And wood chips are only a very small proportion of logging. When you're logging, what you're trying to do is get the wood. And so there is some waste wood, but in terms of mass, it's probably less than 10% of all the wood that gets cut down. So to get 200,000 tonnes of sustainable waste wood, they're probably going to have to burn an extra cut down extra 2 million tonnes of native forest to do it. So again, it's all a big con, isn't it? They're going to save the forests by burning them.
Yeah, of course. It's all counterintuitive, Bruce. All counterintuitive. And
in fact, if you go back 200 years, Europe was severely deforested when wood was the principal fuel source. And it was the invention of the steam engine and the discovery of the use of coal as a fuel several hundred years ago that actually saved the European forests, because they could dig up and burn coal instead of cutting their forests down. And as this story says, as coal became the standard energy source during the Industrial Revolution, the demand for firewood plummeted, allowing previously cleared lands to revert to forests. This transition prevented further ecological collapse and enabled forest cover to increase significantly compared to pre-industrial levels. So switching over to coal saved the great forests of Europe. We're switching back. We're switching back.
We're being regressive. This is all part of the, anti-humanist agenda, right? Because everything that's helped us get to the stage we are now is actually bad in the people that want to reduce the population, Bruce.
Correct. And
before you do that, I just want to make this comment. We're talking about Tasmania, and I'm actually disappointed about this. Gail's put in there. No, not that one. Talking about Tassie. Bogue's Brewery is shutting down, and I'm disappointed, because when I was in Tassie, I bought Bogue's. I actually don't mind that as a as a beer. So I looked it up and I said the historic Jamesburg Brewery in Launceston, Tasmania is shutting down its production operations in November, ending 145 years of local brewing in the state. Parent company Lion is moving all Boag's beer production to mainland Australia, citing a long-term decline in the national beer market and high operational costs. So thank you to the Australian government again for screwing over, Aussie manufacturer, 145-year business, Bruce, and they've destroyed it again. How many taxes on beer and everything else like that? Everything that's good about this country, they're destroying.
Yeah, well, didn't we play that clip a couple of months ago that said if you add in every level of tax, more than half of what you earn goes to the government, more than half.
Yeah.
And it's still not enough. They still got to borrow and tax you more.
Yeah, they're hungry. They're very hungry.
Now, what's this comment from Richard? You might be able to enlighten me here. Never put a lump of coal in a potbelly stove. Educate me, because I don't know why that's wrong.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Richard, when you get a chance, maybe chuck another comment in and go and let us know. That'd be good. That'd be good. We both might get an education.
All righty. So I was going to finish.
Sorry, mate. Going back to your comment, though, I know I'm taking over your little segments a bit, but I just thought this whole going backwards, we've gone from wood to coal, and then we're going backwards, and we see this in all sorts of things. Now, we're meant to be, as a human race, this evolutionary concept of us becoming better and doing everything better. We can send spacecrafts to the moon and everything, and we can now much more efficiently and more safely build nuclear reactors. I mean, isn't that a natural progression of providing secure energy supply to all of the nations? Like all other countries are doing it. Many of the countries have realized that these small nuclear reactors and nuclear is the way to go. They're building them. Australia still has a ban on it. We're not building nuclear, and so we're actually regressing our country in every way, shape, and form, rather than looking at avenue. We're meant to be advancing as the human race. We're meant to be, everything is meant to be, improving, and we've got, improvements in safety and security around nuclear. This is just, it's absolutely ridiculous to think about the path that they're leading us down, Bruce. Really, I shake my head. It just astounds me, mate. It really does.
And it belies world history. Every single productivity improvement that humanity's done over entire history, and which has allowed our carrying capacity of our planet to go from under 2 billion to 8 billion in a century, it's all based on more dense energy. So what do I mean by that? So burning wood, not very dense. Next step up, coal, twice as much energy per unit that you burn. Oil, even more energy dense, but better still, easy to pump and ship around. Nuclear, more dense again. So every improvement in productivity has been contingent on the ability to get more concentrated energy until now. So we've flipped back to energy, which is extremely dilute. You need, vast acreages of turbines to produce anywhere near the power that you get out of a coal power station. And same for solar. You need vast acreages under panels because there ain't much heat coming off the sun per square metre. It's not the same as sitting in front of a furnace. So we are going against the trend of history, which has allowed us to get where we are deliberately, politically. Can't work. And to add to that, what has machinery done? So in terms of power output, we started with a man, about 1/8 of a horsepower, one man. And then we invented the draft animal. So we went to horses or bullocks or whatever. So probably 10 times as powerful. Then we went to the tractor, probably 10 times as powerful again. So again, not only has our energy sources become more concentrated, more power, so have all the machines that we used. And now we want to reverse all of that. Can't work.
Yep.
Can't work.
No. Looks like the Australian government and bureaucrats are listening. They might have read the books from the Club of Rome. Maybe they're just worried about population. They just want to reduce it.
I've read the book.
Yeah. So
Paul
Richard
early?
answered your questions. He said, I
Yep,
did it once
right.
and it was way too hot, apparently. It burns too hot.
Yep.
Yeah, but then Phillips come in and said, I was under the impression a potbelly stove is designed to burn both wood and coal effectively. So there you go. But anyway, they've learned something. So it burns too hot. There you go.
And that's interesting. If ever you've had a potbelly stove, they're not very bloody good. They're really quite small. The wood you can put in them has got to be pretty small. Like nobody puts a potbelly stove in their lounge room anymore if they're wood burning. They've got one of those big square boxes. So I do wonder whether the potbelly was aimed more at lumps of coal than bits of wood, because the bits of wood have to be pretty small.
Yep. Yeah, interesting. Oh, well, there you go. A bit of a sidetrack diversion there.
Nah, never.
Oh, not like us, is it, mate?
So just to close that out, I'm just going to make the observation that pretty much everything the green movement tells us that we need to do to save the environment ends up damaging it. So it damages the wildlife. If you want to put in these bird mincing installations, you've got to bulldoze lots of tracks. You've got to clear lots of trees to get up there, because the reason there's roads all over that is because these monsters need enormous machinery to put them up. You know, there's thousands of tons of steel and concrete in a single wind turbine. So they've got to put roads in just to get the machinery in to erect them. Then there's all of the electrical infrastructure and so forth. So they're not just
not to mention the ongoing maintenance.
You mean the fire extinguishing?
Yeah. I was going to say the oil change and the fire trucks to be able to put the bastards out. But anyway, there you go.
Not so much an oil change, more. You know, remember in the old days, this car's burning oil.
This thing's just burning all together. Yeah. Yeah.
And by the way, I reckon it was nearly 2 years ago that I did that story about spending all night babysitting a burning wind turbine just near Ararat. It's still there. It's still sitting there with the top blade burnt off and the two lower blades down. It's still sitting there 2 years later. My guess is they're just going to ignore it.
Yeah, it's too expensive to pull down, mate. It's too expensive.
All right. This is what they've got to do to put the snowy hydro screen in, with the access roads and the tunnelling and the piping. So that can't be good for the environment.
Oh, no, it's good now, Bruce, because the wood's going to be used for other things now, right? It's going to be used to make the cement, Bruce. That's all good.
I'm hoping we can ship it to England because it's carbon neutral over there.
Yeah, that too.
And solar panels, massively at risk of hail, and periodically they get thousands of these destroyed by storms. And, you know, think of the Sydney hailstorms. We get serious hailstorms here in Australia, and not just big farms like this. How many houses have got a few panels up? And of course, they're full of chemicals, which when you damage the panel, they leach out. So they either run down your gutters or drop into the ground, and you've got all the broken glass and all that. And at the end of the life, 10 or 20 years, these things got to be buried. They can't be recycled. They've got to go to landfill.
Yeah. Yep. Like the blades of the wind factories, Bruce. But you know what?
Yes.
Richford again had a great idea, Bruce. He said you can park it. Since they only used 14 hours out of the total now of 2 years, they can park the electric fire truck at the base of each turbine. That way, there's a fire truck there just in case. What do you reckon?
I think there's probably more risk that the fire truck will immolate and burn the turbine down.
Yeah, it could be. Well, because it could be a unified emulation. But anyway. Yeah, love is love after all.
Exactly right. All right, financial stuff. So a bit of change from last week. So mainly happened on Friday. There was a fair plunge in world markets, stock markets, gold, etc. on Friday for no particular reason except when things are bubble territory, and we've been due an economic crash for years, and periodic corrections are normal. Maybe this is the start of a big one. Maybe it's not. We can't be too far off it because everything's unstable. So we had falls in the price of all the alternative monies, gold, silver, and Bitcoin. ASX didn't do much. That's the stock market. And oil's still roughly about the same, mid $90. 100 days into the 4-day Gulf War, and the oil market still doesn't seem to have noticed that we've lost 20% of oil supply. And by the way, there's two reasons why the prices of oil haven't really bounced. I mean, they bounced a bit. I think they're in the $70 US range at the start of the Gulf War, and they're now sort of hovering around 100. But there's two reasons why world oil prices and local petrol prices aren't really reflecting that. One is because the US are selling their strategic petroleum reserve around the world. So that's their rainy day oil store. Instead of them keeping that for a rainy day, such as, if you got invaded, they're actually selling it on the open market to put supply out that has been lost. Now, the problem with that is it's already at very low levels, and at some point they can't do that anymore, and they'll have no strategic reserve. So that, again, is the market lying to us. There is an oil shortage. It's just it's being temporarily buffered. It's a bit like whacking, you lose your job, and to keep looking like things are going okay, you just whack stuff on the credit card, but your credit's going to run out pretty soon. You haven't changed anything. There's the oil prices last week and this week in my local service station. And the main change there is a decent drop in the price of diesel, down 16 cents. And pretty much that's not far off what we would have called normal 100 days ago. But I make the point that 23 cents of that price is a discount in the tax rate, the fuel excise, which is limited. It may go away. And it's a bad thing. If we generally have a shortage of hydrocarbon fuels, the last thing you want to do is prevent prices going up to balance supply. There's a saying in industry, the cure for high prices is high prices. So higher prices make people modify their behaviour. Hell, I'm not driving to Adelaide this weekend if I'm paying $3 a litre for diesel, and that brings consumption down. And the other thing is, it improves supply. Maybe pick a country somewhere in Malaysia goes, look, I wouldn't normally ship a tanker of oil to Australia because it costs too much. But if the price is high, you know what? I would do it. So we, again, just as the world oil price is being artificially suppressed to lie to us about the seriousness of the Gulf War, so are local fuel prices.
Yep. I wanted to get just back a couple of things that I was looking at. There was in regards to our last story. So Scooby's gone. Yeah, deep sea solar panels can be absolutely recycled. Yes, they can. I did do just a bit of a search on that. It says modern processes can actually recover 95 to 90% of panel materials, but here's the kicker. But its real world effectiveness is limited by low collection rates, high costs compared to landfilling, and uneven infrastructure. Recovery is improving with technology and policy, especially as the first big wave of panels from 1990 2010s reaches end of life. But apparently, yes, they can be recycled, but there's a lot of things preventing that happening at the moment.
Oh, thanks for letting us know that. Although one question I've had, once your field full of thousands of panels gets smashed by a hailstorm, isn't that now a toxic waste dump? Are you really going to be cutting that off for recycling? How is that possible?
Yeah, because there is meant to be silver and other stuff in them, but I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
Yeah, that's been one of the price pressures. Silver is an excellent conductor of electricity and of heat, so yeah, that's important. And I've just flashed up that comment there. Where is it? Yeah, there's been a bit of a kerfuffle in Melbourne over the last couple of days because someone's driving around with one of those mobile advertising sign trucks with a not very flattering picture of the Victorian Premier, Jacinda Allen, and a slogan that says, "Ditch the witch."
Yeah, and apparently Pauline's come out firing back at her a bit.
Well, let's go back, in a bit of history there. when Margaret Thatcher died, and Margaret Thatcher was a conservative, or you could call a right-wing politician in Britain, the left were very happy to say, "Ding dong, the witch is dead." That was perfectly acceptable back in the 80s when it was a right-wing politician or a conservative politician that was targeted. Now, of course, we had the same thing with Gillard about 10 years ago, ditch the witch, and now with Jacinta Allen. And the point is here, they're immediately falling on the sexism or misogyny defence. Okay, so Jacinta Allen's come out and said that, this sort of sexism has no place in our democracy. Sweetheart, the problem is not your sex here. The problem is that you are a witch. That's the problem.
You watch us get taken off here in a minute. Go on.
Sweetheart too much?
Yeah, sweetheart was too much. But the funny thing about it is that and I've heard that Pauline Hanson's come out, haven't it? I mean, Pauline Hanson is a female. She doesn't reject that title. She's been a woman in politics for 20. Look at what they have done to that woman.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, if you like One Nation or not, I'm not here to be a mouthpiece for One Nation. But you've got to give credit where credit's due. Pauline Hanson has been one of the most tenacious politicians in our country's history, and she's a female. Now, she has been massively attacked by every political party that has been in existence in this personally, and she's also been sent to jail because of vindictive programs by opposition parties. So these people have got no complaint to whinge, and she is the most apt person to be able to push back on Jacinta Allen's whinge, which apparently she has done, because she's been under attack for over 20 years as a female politician, senator in this country, trying to fight back against the status quo. So yeah, I think people need to pull their head in a little bit. But yeah, also wanted to go back really quickly to another one, Scooby. Yes, I've heard about this too. China, apparently thorium is meant to be big, and apparently there's an abundance all around the world. I think even in Australia, thorium. So there's lots of interesting things happening in thorium as well. So just wanted to run back through to that comment. But anyway, back over to you, mate, after my little blurb about Pauline. But I think, look, regardless of what you think about Pauline, regardless of what you think about One Nation, she deserves to have some credibility given to her for the amount of time that she's stuck out, the absolute abuse that she's received as a politician in this country.
And I just got a final question for Jacinta Allen. Isn't it a bit sexist to say that only women can be witches? Are you saying men can't be? Are you saying a man can't be a witch? Because that's pretty sexist.
Oh no, that's pretty bad. But you could almost be a wizard. I like your beard. Your beard's getting there.
Righto, enough of that.
I'm a wizard, Harry. I'm a wizard.
So where were we? We were talking about.
Let's get you back. Let's get you back to your screen.
You want to give me that screen back? There we go. So what have we got here? So Pauline Hanson was attacked in the mainstream media for opposing the fixing of the minimum wage by the Fair Work Commission. And like I say, I support that. So the problem with minimum wages is that's price fixing. That's saying the least you're allowed to pay somebody for labour is X. So the price has to be this high or higher. And like I say, if two businesses got together to collude to prevent prices falling below a level, they'd be in big trouble. But apparently it's okay if the government does it. So leaving that aside, the problem with minimum wage laws is that they put a price on somebody's labour, and anytime you do price fixing, you get shortages. That's an economic thing. You know, if you set the price of bread at $1, you don't get dollar bread, you get no bread. So in this case, the price is the price of labour, and the thing you're buying is a job. So if they don't make those two things equate, you know, if they set the price of the job higher than the value of the job goes away. The employers don't just suddenly go, you know, like, this is a $17 an hour worker, and now the government says I have to pay them $25. I guess I will. They go, I can't afford it. you're costing me money to employ you, so I'm not going to do that. So this whole story was probably just political. But if Labor really believes that it's a bad thing for Pauline Hanson to oppose a minimum wage, they're just economically illiterate, which of course they are. So here's an example. Businesses only employ somebody if the employee adds value to the business. So in this story, this I think was from the US, colour me shocked. They swore the $15 minimum wage would be magical for everyone. Higher pay, thriving businesses, cheaper happy hours. Instead, thousands of jobs are gone, restaurants are gutted. And that's what happens. If your employee becomes uneconomical, they lose their job. Now, sometimes the entire business folds because of that. And so it's not just your minimum wage worker that loses their job. Everybody in the business loses the job because they can't afford the entry-level staff. And here's how it might happen. So businesses substitute. If you make an entry-level worker too expensive, one of the things they can do is eliminate that job. And you are seeing this. You go to McDonald's, you can go up to the counter, but they'll tend to ignore you. Almost everybody goes and picks at these screens now. So I don't know how many jobs they've eliminated from behind the counter, but it's some. And there's obviously a significant hardware and software cost for putting that in, but it's worth it to McDonald's to do it because somebody has priced that entry-level worker too high. That job goes away. We see the same things in Coles and Woolies. Most supermarkets I go into now have got one or two open real person checkout lanes and a whole bunch of these kiosks, which in my experience never bloody work. Are you listening, Coles and Woolies? Every single time I use one of these. And backstory, I mean, I'm not a klutz. I've got 3 university degrees. I used to operate an anaesthetic machine that was 100 times more complicated than that. And yet every time I try and put my groceries through one of those, I can barely get 5 or 10 items into it. An alarm goes off and says, illegal item in bagging area.
That's because it's talking about you. It's from that facial recognition camera that picks up, because that's the only thing that doesn't break, Bruce, is the facial recognition camera that's picking you up and it's going, yes, this is definitely broken. Alert, alert.
Danger, Will Robinson.
Danger, Will Robinson.
So here's 2 real-world examples of entry-level jobs going away if you price them above what they're worth to the employer. And yet that's what the Fair Work Commission does. It says this is the price that person's labour is worth. They have no idea what an employee's labour is worth. Some are better than others. Some are atrocious.
This is exactly, and it kind of plays into that DEI thing. I interviewed Kevin Lochray plenty of times, and he was a big proponent for scrapping minimum wage altogether. And he was very strong on that. And I had quite a few comments come back, about that. But I got his point, because it's exactly what you're making there is that he was saying is ultimately minimum wage is almost like a DEI kind of concept. Is what you're saying is you're going to pay everybody the same regardless of anything, right? But what he's saying is that employers will end up employing people that are good at their job, lo and behold, and keep them. But you know what? I actually offer them more money to retain them, because if you're a good employee, you're diligent, you know what you're doing, you're going to be headhunted by other companies that want you above people that aren't going to give a toss about, or aren't going to put the best efforts in. So you're going to be able to earn good capacity, and the people that don't, well, they'll continue to earn the money that the employer sees fit for that role. You know what I mean? This is how it works, because employers are putting themselves, and this is where people jump up and down. They go, oh, look at the employers, they're earning heaps of money. They've, he can take a holiday for, once a year, all this sort of stuff. Forget about the 18 hours work they do. And they say, well, yeah, and the risk, but the employer owes me this. Well, actually, no, the employer has put themselves at risk to be able to give you a job. And now I'm not talking about these corporate entities, these globalist corporate entities. I'm talking about small businesses, employees that are actually being screwed by the global corporatist businesses, right? Because of all this sort of stuff. It's almost again like it's by design, Bruce, right? It's almost like it's by design. And I think America still has a minimum, has got no minimum wage either, has it? Like a cap or something like that. I think they still operate under that system.
They do, but they're much lower than in Australia, like some $7, $8, $9, so 12 or 15 bucks. I think the minimum in Australia is like 25 or something like that. Look, at the end of the day, some wise central bureaucrat has no idea what my kid working in my cafe pulling coffees is worth. They have no idea. They just don't have the information to tell me what they're worth. It's the person who's running the business who knows what they're worth. And like you said, if they're a valuable employee, they'll probably get a bonus to retain them. And if they're rubbish, their job goes away.
Yeah, exactly right. Yep. And I don't know about young ones. I had this discussion with my young bloke, when he was working, getting experience and stuff like that. I mean, he was grateful that he actually had a job. He knew that he wasn't getting paid much because he wasn't very qualified coming out of school having a job, and he accepted the fact that he was going to get paid a little bit of money. I mean, here's someone like you that's gone to, you've got three degrees. You've worked very hard. You've become an anaesthetist. You well and truly deserved your six-figure income. And young people, I think, when they come out of school and university or whatever, want the same without having put the hard work in. I think it works both ways. These are definitely, and this comes back to that sort of philosophical discussion and stuff like that, doesn't it? I mean, this is the sort of stuff. But I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of the young ones come out of school now thinking that they can just earn the same as someone that's put in decades worth of hard work, and I think that's the shift.
Because we deserve it, Mark. It's a living wage.
Yep, and Aussie Truth Seeker nails this on the head, because the other thing is we've exported all our work to places like China and other things, right? So, there isn't enough work to go around because we've destroyed our manufacturing, lots of other things. But geez, I tell you what, we're going off topic a bit tonight. There's a lot of stuff that we're talking about.
Well, you're not, because this slide actually makes the point. The reason jobs go offshore is because they're cheaper offshore. Now, not everything can. Steel making's gone offshore. We send them our dirty coal and China sends us steel. But a lot of IT stuff does. And part of the reason for stuff going offshore is, one, the wages costs are too high. And if you look at the headline here, a third of the cost of a worker goes to the government. Payroll, tax, compliance costs, this, that, and the other. So the government is already, like they do with everything, they're sticking their hand out and saying, we want our cut. They tax cigarettes to reduce, smoking. They tax jobs. What do you think happens? Jobs go down as well. Yeah. So, thanks. If the government really cared about entry-level jobs, they wouldn't tax them, and they'd drop the regulations, make it easier for employers to keep them. Yep.
Now, I wonder what your thoughts are on that, because I've often talked about our Holden experience here, right? Because there's a lot of talk about the union bargaining enterprise agreements and pushing wages. There was talk about Holden workers earning $5 above the average manufacturing rate, and it was just too expensive to manufacture Holdens over here, so they ended up canning the Holdens here in South Australia. But the other people you talk to say, well, they deserve to get paid good money because we have better systems over here. We do, our work ethics a lot better and all this sort of stuff. But I think, well, you know what? At the end of the day, what you've done is all those people had to be reskilled because they just closed the business because it cost too much to manufacture over here. But part of that is that global issue again, what I talked about before about manufacturing going overseas to countries like China that don't have the same health and safety regulations and standards that we do. So look, I guess it's a complex thing. It's a really interesting discussion to have just on its own around that.
But I'm a free market absolutist. The business knows what they need to do to make money. They know which employees make the money. And if they don't make the money, that job cannot exist. It either goes somewhere else or it disappears. That's the end of the story.
Fair call.
Anyway, better keep moving because times are marching.
Yeah.
Hell.
Been good discussions, but it's good. Yeah, getting along.
health. Now, as noted, obesity is a dietary disease, but our doctors are paid to ignore that fact and push drugs on top of it rather than addressing the root causes. And the Ozempic family is a great example of that. And here's yet another side effect that's come up for Ozempic. So accelerated osteoporosis. So thinning of the bones is accelerated with Ozempic and the Ozempic family. And trust me, if you're 140 kilos and lugging around all that weight, you don't want weak bones. Note also, this is after a 5-year analysis. So reference back to the safe and effectives of a while ago. When a drug first comes out, you don't know what the 5-year, 10-year, whatever risk factors are because it takes a while for them to develop. And it looks like that's true for the Ozempic family again. Increased by a third in your risk of osteoporosis and fractures and so forth. And just to quickly list them, here are some of the other side effects of that family of drugs. We've got Ozempic face, where you lose the musculature and you look haggard. You've got delayed stomach emptying. That's one of the points of it. You feel full because your stomach doesn't empty. But that can cause nausea and vomiting. It can even paralyze your stomach, possibly permanently, or it can cause a bowel obstruction requiring major surgery. Gallbladder attacks, I haven't had one, but I understand they're extremely painful, so you don't want one of those. Pancreatitis is related to that. That's an inflammation of one of your internal organs, which is life-threatening in some cases. We had the sudden blindness issue where people were suddenly just losing sight in an eye. And we've got thyroid cancer and muscle wasting. So just a reminder that all drugs have side effects. And normally when they're first released, the side effects are unknown or lied about or underestimated. And this is the new miracle drug. And then over time, all the horror stories accumulate. So the safe bit tends to go down over time as more experience reveals more problems. And like I say, the safe and effectives probably were a good example of that, weren't they? Now, speaking of safe and effectives, it's now, 5+ years since the safe effectives were pushed on us into the market. And by now, the failure of the safety and the effectiveness is probably pretty obvious to a lot of people. And so the mainstream media is just now starting to push out stories talking about it. At no point acknowledging that they were complicit in the whole thing. So I'm going to give you an example of that.
Well, back when our borders shut, Chris was quick to do what he thought was the right thing to protect himself and his nearest and dearest.
This is our shot to look out for each other, keep healthy and safe.
And to bring Australians home.
To end lockdowns once and for all. This is my shot.
This is my shot.
Start a conversation with your doctor about your shot.
He got the jab, which he says destroyed his life. All our hopes are riding on a vaccine.
Yes.
You need to be quiet. He got the jab, which he says destroyed his life. For that, he received the biggest ever COVID payout, more than $6 million, but it comes with a sting. There's hundreds of billions of dollars spent in government stimulus. All our hopes are riding on a vaccine. Yes. You need to be quiet. He got the jab, which he says destroyed his life. All our hopes are riding on a vaccine. Yes. You need to be quiet. Kathleen loves flowers, so much so she became a florist. To keep a shop open during COVID, she got the jab, but the side effects are devastating.
This is my shot.
13 surgeries later, she can never work again. All our hopes are riding on a vaccine. Yes. You need to be quiet. 13 surgeries later, she can never work again.
Well, if you don't want to listen to our most senior qualified
I am listening to them, and I think you need to start listening to our scientists and our doctors, Craig.
Our scientist is our most senior qualified immunologist in this country, Professor
Craig.
Robert Clancy, and you are not listening to him. I'm sorry.
No worries, Craig. You're in a position of responsibility, and I think you're failing in that
and
duty.
I'll continue to speak the truth and tell the truth.
Well done, Craig
So,
Kelly.
she
Word
wasn't-
go, he's always been yep.
She wasn't interviewing him, was she?
No, absolutely not.
She was there to make him look bad and demolish him. So never forget what our bought and paid for mainstream media did to us and the very serious consequences that came from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't play all of it, but if you go further into that, they note that injured person who got the $6.5 million payout, guess what? Government wanted their cut of that, you see.
Mm-hmm. Of course they did, yeah. They wanted to tax it, didn't they?
Yeah, the government wanted their cut of it. So I'll pull that down. Ooh. And back to you. Oh, that's gone small on me.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
It looks all right on the screen, but it's while you get yourself sorted. I don't think we should. I know this other person's got. No, that's all right. I'll let you keep going.
Yep. Okay. Let me just do a
face mask.
Yeah, just give me a second to sort that because that's almost impossible for me to read now.
Oh, take your time. You go and you sort yourself out. Take your time and see what you can do there, buddy. You good?
No. Keep talking. I'll work on it.
That's all right. I'm just going to bring something else up if I can, while you're doing that. Share screen. Let's bring this one up here. All right, not to be left out.
Do you think the process was deliberate?
Hang on. Here we go. Let's play this one here.
Do their bit for the country now, trying to protect other people from passing on this killer.
All right, the other person is obviously Carl, who was a co-host, and he's got his own little podcast going now. But let's play this quickly from Carl.
Do their bit for the country now, trying to protect other people from passing on this killer virus, which is what it is. You have and espouse all these weird, wacko beliefs, and unfortunately there are people out there who are going to believe you and who are going to side with you, and that's just irresponsible in the current climate. It's just irresponsible. You know what? I can't even listen to you anymore. I'm so sorry.
Put it to you, Carl?
I can't even listen to you.
I can't.
Right, there we go.
There we go.
Did I remove? Yep. Did I remove you? I'm back. Did I remove you there? You just stopped it.
No, that's all right. No, I just stopped it, but that's all good. I was just filling in a bit of time. I don't know if the sound was still coming through for people, but anyway, there we go. We ad lib as we go, mate.
No, for those who don't know, StreamYard is still a bit glitchy, and when I actually showed you that, the panel that I'm working off went from that size down to fingernail size. So I couldn't see what my next slide is. But here's the point I was trying to make there.
Blame StreamYard. I'm going to send you a screen. You know what? I'm actually going to send you a big screen. I'm just going to get you sorted, mate.
It would still only be that big. So here's the interesting point. That story said that this poor woman got one of the biggest payouts for this terrible injury. Her business partner then turned around and took over a third of it.
Mm.
So she got paid for pain, suffering, disability, injury. And the tax office said, yeah, well, we've got a third share in that.
Well, the problem is that this person can't even do a meme about that with Albo. He can't even, because Albo will send the lawyers after him because he can't even say, Albo is my business partner in my vaccination claim, taking 37% of my money because Albo complains about those sorts of things.
Yeah, well, he's a bit fragile, our Albo. Okay, let's try again at the risk of having exactly the same trouble. So that then flows onto this story, which says that masking children had significant effects on them. So,
here we go.
During the COVID pandemic changed the development of babies' brains, according to new research out of Melbourne. The study by RMIT and Monash University found premature babies exposed to masked faces showed lower brain activity in areas linked to facial recognition, which may have affected how they process faces and emotions. Experts say more research is needed, but the findings highlight just how important face-to-face interaction is during the earliest stages of life.
Wow. Who would have thunk it, Bruce? Who would have thought that? Who in you know, in this whole world would have thought that that would make just common, that would make sense. You think, like, when we were created, I mean, weren't we, well, it depends. I'm going to, if people think of evolution, do you think we should have evolved with a flap of skin over our mouth to stop, you know, stuff coming in? Like, is that, I don't know, maybe is that what they're saying? Maybe that's where we should have been. But anyway, I'm being silly, I know.
I think some people should have had one to stop stuff coming out.
Especially our politicians, for sure.
So the point here is that by the year plus of draconian restrictions, we did measurable damage and probably permanent damage to small children.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably can't get that back. So as another example, if you have a baby that's born profoundly deaf and you don't pick it up for 2 years, even when you do pick it up and put a cochlear implant in and all that stuff, they never get very good hearing. It's all very low fidelity because the parts of their brain that develop to process the sound haven't developed when they were supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
So they've had 2 years of silence. That bit of their brain has stayed small and atrophic and it never catches up. So things that we did to kids in particular can scar them forever. And add to that all the fear campaigns and the lockdowns and you might kill grandmas and all that stuff. And, you know, the person walking past you in the street, you could kill them or they could kill you just by breathing on you. We've probably got permanent psychiatric changes particularly in our children as well, that were caused by all of that. And remember, children had effectively zero risk of COVID. Zero.
Yeah. 100%. We've got that on record too, by the way. We've got that on record from our top health bureaucrats. Yeah. But the other thing, as you know, Bruce, before I got terminated from the disability sector, this is the other thing, is people who are living with a disability, and I doubt they would do studies on this now to see whether people living with a disability that had behavioural issues that may have escalated during that time, who regressed because a lot of their communication was, you know, they view people, they look at people's faces, their smile through their, you know, their mouth, their and facial interactions and all that. You mask people, you mask carers and support staff, and this would have profoundly affected people with disabilities as well. But yes, absolutely, children astronomically, absolutely.
And right up to the other end of life. I had a neighbour when I lived in Adelaide who was getting elderly, had a cardiac failure, not very good heart. And I pulled some strings to get this neighbour in to see a cardiologist that I used to work for, so I can, you know, twist some arms. And she went in and had a consult. And when she came home that night, I said, you know, what did the cardiologist say? And she said, I got no idea he was wearing a mask.
Oh my gosh, what the heck?
Talk about keeping grandma safe.
Yeah. Yep. Für das Allgemeinwohl. Who cares, right?
Anyway, this is the story that baby masking thing was based on. I'll just read a conclusion. While newborns are known to show a preference for faces, it is thought that the continued exposure to faces, particularly those of parents after birth, are critical for developing the brain networks that will help the child navigate social situations later in life. So that's likely a permanent change. Those kids are likely to have social difficulty forever because that's a skill that they never properly developed.
Yep.
And just a reminder about masks and what they do. For those who haven't seen Ted Noel's, this was published very early during the whole masking BS. And any politician watching this should have said, we're not masking. It's rubbish.
Yep.
So let's look at this demo.
Yes.
First, let's cut to the chase and take a look at an ordinary surgical mask. And I'm using a vape. As you can see, that vape, which has aerosols the same size as COVID-19 or larger, goes through and around a surgical mask. Now, if we take a cup mask and have a good look at it, here we go. Notice it goes right through the mask easily and goes in every direction. The aerosol is not affected by the mask in any material. Now we look at a surgical mask with a foam strip to protect above and keep my glasses from fogging. Lo and behold, the aerosols go all around it. Has no effect on me spreading aerosols to you. Now a cloth mask I borrowed from my wife. Once again, here we go. Boom, straight through and around. It has no effect on the spread of aerosols. They go everywhere. And then I went and bought a guard mask with a high efficiency filter material. That one, here we go. Watch for it. Through and around. It had no effect on the vape aerosol, which, remember, is the same size or larger. Now, I don't have an N95 mask. I have these shop respirators where they can put all kinds of things in them, but they're like an N95 because when you breathe out, everything goes out through a valve. Guess what? It might protect me.
So remember, this was very early on. This was in a few months of the whole masking BS. I sent this to Josh Teague, my MP. He sent the police round in reply. Our wise rulers, not only this country, but around the world, they forced everybody to do that, despite simple demonstrations like that, showing it was utterly ineffective. And look what it did to our kids, permanently damaged them.
Yeah, absolutely.
They knew this. This was a compliance ritual. It was not a health intervention, not at all.
Yeah, exactly right, mate. No, absolutely. It was all by design, mate. All the people that were put in the institutions that were controlling us during that period were there for a reason. They're all. I mean, look at how much influence Jane Helton had. I mean, how often is she talked about? Part of Event 201. She was, it's all about the CEOs. How many of the CEOs were primed by Jane Helton at all about, it's just a massive scan. And for those people that might not have seen this in the past, here's just a real quick reminder about how our experts actually did say.
But do we know if the vaccines are safe for young children, and will they need a vaccine to be protected?
So the benefit, I might get Professor Kelly to talk to that. There are trials being done in teenagers at the moment who do seem to have been more common than younger children to get clinically evident COVID. But the main reason to want to vaccinate children would be to create herd immunity. Very, very few children have clinically apparent COVID disease, and the very young children, primary school children, often don't get the virus at all. It doesn't seem to transmit very well. It does seem to transmit in older children, secondary school age children, and for that reason there are trials underway to make sure the vaccines are safe and effective, and if they are safe and effective, we would probably, like most countries, want to embark in a program of vaccinating older children to create greater herd immunity to stop transmission. But Professor Kelly might want to address that.
I think it's a very important component. Thank you for the question, Senator, and for the reasons that Professor Murphy has mentioned. Not so much to protect the children, because we've found right around the world that hasn't been a major issue in terms of COVID. Surprisingly, it's very unusual for a respiratory infection like this to affect adults more than children, but that appears to be the case. But
well, there you go. I'm not going to play all of that, but that's on my Rumble. I've kept a record of that, and one of the reasons, because people know that I wrote extensively in regards to children in care as a foster parent, how children in care were made to take these things, and I've got that on the record. So any child in care that ever has a claim to say they were injured or damaged as a result of these things, that's the first thing I'm going to pull out, because kids were not at risk, Bruce, as you well and truly know anyway, and you've reported on yourself. But yep, including the masks damaged them, everything else damaged them, when we knew kids were never at risk. Well, the majority of the population were. We know now that this thing was just a bloody seasonal flu.
Yep, and they knew they knew that the masks were ineffective from day one. They lied to us continuously about it. These, by the way, are the same chief health officers who can't tell us what a woman is.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'll take that on notice, Bruce. I'll take that on notice, brother.
Complicated, Mark. It's complicated.
It's complicated. Yes. You've got to do your little wry little laugh, you know, because it's too uncomfortable.
Did you notice at the start, at the very start of that, I think it's Brendan Murphy's answer there, he gave a nervous laugh and then he did this and then he answered. In body language terms, the nervous laugh means he knows he's lying, and touching the nose is also another tell that you're lying.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. And Susie, this is one of the things that I fought for so heavily. I'm really sorry that happened to you, because that was one of the biggest risks of my wife and I during that whole period. It was the risk of being removed. I guess I was just so grateful to have Tony Nikolic and other people at the time and being involved in the court case with the Australian Vaccination Risk Network, Julian Gillespie, Peter Pham, Katie Ashby-Coppins. One of the reasons that we survived that, but unfortunately, I'm really, really terribly sorry to hear that a child was removed from your care because you were trying to stand up for them. And this is what really, to be honest, and excuse the language, as a Christian, pisses me off, to be honest.
Yep. All right. Bit more safe and effectives here, because it's I could have put this in the "it's happened again" category. So we've had this international soccer player who's just had his second cardiac arrest on the pitch. First one was 5 years ago. I think that would make it 2021. What was happening in 2021? Have you got any idea?
Well, I don't know what was happening in 2021, Bruce. Just remind me. I'm a bit slow on the uptake with a lot of things, as you know. That's why you're on the show, because you're the expert.
It's complicated, Mark. It's complicated.
Yes, it's true. So, true. Climate change, Bruce, I hear. Climate change. Oh, that's going around a lot, apparently.
Coffee was too hot. So this international soccer player from Europe had a cardiac arrest on the pitch 5 years ago, as did quite a few others. He obviously survived that. And after they put an internal defibrillator, so it's like a big pacemaker, they put a ICD, implanted cardiac defibrillator, in him, and he went back to soccer. And just the other day, he's had his second one. So 5 years later, he's now dropped dead twice on the pitch. And fortunately, the ICD worked this time. So again, he's still alive, but he's actually died twice. And I would attribute most likely both of them to the safe and effectives. But a bit of good news, because I managed to slip a comment past the censors at the Advertiser, because I put this comment in: sudden and unexpected. And that that slipped past the censors. How about that?
Well, it made it, Bruce. Holy dooly, that's the first in a long time.
Now, still in the cardiology realm, and in another case of not seeing the forest for the trees, we had this story during the week in the Advertiser, where they apparently interviewed 52 cardiologists around the country about heart health. And the story says that the experts expressed concern about a spike, in heart-related issues being seen in hospitals, and said that the rate was about 40% higher since the start of the COVID era. They didn't call it the start of the COVID era, but from 2019, the rate of young people getting cardiac issues had gone up 40%. Now, being experts, they told us what was going on. So they said, anecdotally, it's becoming generally more accepted among cardiologists that more young people are presenting with heart problems. This is likely linked to rising risk factors, including overweight, obesity, smoking, including illicit tobacco and vaping, and increased rates of diabetes. Well, first question, have they gone up enough to give us a 40% rise in 5 or 6 years? I doubt it. And second, they seem to me to have missed one particular risk factor, which is very tightly correlated with that time period. That seems to have slipped their notice, I guess.
Funny about that. Where's Dan?
Climate change, coffee too hot,
Mm.
people too diabetic, people too fat, because that's all new since the last 4 or 5 years, isn't it?
Yeah, apparently so, Bruce. Apparently so. I just wanted to go to something here and talking to this. This is just my take on things, and appreciate your comment, Groove Nuts. I haven't seen you on the thing before. Trying to tell our listeners that's which was designed as a bioweapon under the umbrella of biodefense as a seasonal flu. Now, can I just give you my take, and Bruce, you might shoot me down as well, but I just want to give you my take on how I see things that have unfolded. So I believe that the actual bioweapon narrative was a load of crock. I actually believe that the escape from the Wuhan lab was a load of crock. I believe that the natural take from this thing was a load of crock. These were all stories designed, and as we see now, the death rate was modelling. It was all done on modelling, and we now know that the people around the world that they claim to have died from this thing was nowhere near it. The people that actually died was as a result of bad hospital malpractice by not giving the adequate medicine during that period, and going against normal treatment protocols for seasonal influenza, in particular in elderly people. So they were given the wrong treatment protocols and all that. I truly believe this was all designed as a massive psyop to get people to take up the actual bioweapon, which you talk about, which was in the injections that were forced on the population. So I truly, this is me, and people can shoot me down in flames as much as you want. That's okay. That's where I stand. I believe the whole narrative was designed around the bioweapon of the thing that was injected into people's arms. And I am 100% glad that I refused it from the word go. They murdered people with this supposed fix to a supposed bioweapon escape, and that's just where I stand on it. If you don't agree with that, Groove, that's okay. That's my view on it. And lots of other people might not agree with me, but that's kind of where I stand on it.
No, that's good. Let me add a few responses as well. I don't think it's particularly relevant whether it was an accidental or deliberate release. There are many scientific parts that showed that it was unlikely to have evolved naturally. There are bits in it that just really couldn't have got there by random chance, reference what we did beforehand. But I agree, it wasn't about the COVID, it was about the injections. The whole campaign here was a get injected campaign. It wasn't a survive COVID campaign. And the evidence for that was the extreme coercion for people who refused the shot, whether they were sick or not, whether they had natural immunity or not. That didn't matter. All of the normal reasons we would not inject somebody with the drug were all extinguished. So people who said, I've already had the disease, I'm not vulnerable, get injected. People who said, the other shot I had damn near killed me through allergic reaction, get the shot, just get it in a hospital with an intensive care, etc., etc., etc. So it was clearly a get vaccinated campaign. Now, it may have been that the original virus, the wild type or the first strain, was quite pathogenic, but it did what viruses always do, and that is they blend into the environment. So the reason Ebola doesn't spread all the way around the world is because it kills 80 people in a village, then there's no one left to kill. The ideal respiratory virus infects everybody and none of them suspect it. So they keep going about their business, spreading it. So I think very early on, even if the intent was to spread the spike protein via the first COVID strain, COVID beat them because it mutated early on and it wasn't serious. And that's when they really put the hammer down on the you will get injected or else campaign. Now, in terms of, was it a flu? Yeah, it was. I'll give you a couple of data points. During the COVID years, almost all cases of flu went away and were replaced pretty much one for one with COVID diagnoses. Same clinical syndrome, roughly the same numbers, affected the same people, So rebadging flu would exactly explain what we had there. And it affected the people that normally affects, people at the end of life, old people with failing immune systems, along with everything else. So
we see the flu, and we saw flu deaths actually go down to nearly zero, and then they relabeled it as COVID, like you said, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Anyway, that's enough time. I don't know if that's Dr. Dan or a genuine new person. Welcome if you're new to the channel, although happy to engage with you, although profanity is probably not the best way to do it, whether we've got any effing idea or not, I would have thought.
Well, I'm happy to share where my reasoning and our thoughts have come from, and I've been at this for as long as a lot of other people in this space. But people in China falling down, pretending to fall down dead, and we know that's all BS. From the word go, I hardly think this was exactly what they planned it was supposed to be. But anyway, there you go.
It was theatre. It was theatre, and the end result was roll up your sleeve and then roll it up again. And I'm going to actually add to that in a bit. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
All right.
Watch those bats. Watch those bats, Bruce. Watch those bats.
I'm watching the ticks at the moment because here's something I did some reading into during the week. So tick-borne diseases, so where people get sick after a tick bite, are apparently massively on the rise in the US, with increases over a few years of like thousands of % in the attack rates. And one of the worst forms of that is a acquired red meat allergy called alpha-gal syndrome, which you can acquire after a tick bite. And this little piece from Peter McCullough's channel just will background you a bit on that.
Mm-hmm. And while you're watching that, maybe you can check some of the updated comments.
Roger.
Nick, now I think it should be the FBI. What needs to happen next to something that was once extremely rare in this country that is a fact, but it is becoming more and more common as more people develop an allergy to red meat after getting bitten by a Lone Star tick, which is the tick you see with the white dot on its back. And over the last several years, cases of alpha-gal syndrome have skyrocketed by almost 10,000%. And now, headline after headline, all asking the same question: how could a tick-borne illness suddenly be impacting so many people, not just people living in rural America, but in suburban America as well? And then we heard from Dr. Matthew Lau at the World Science Festival 10 years ago.
People eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption of meat, then they would it would actually really help the planet. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe it.
Can you scroll up a bit there, brother?
Yeah, we can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering.
Oh, okay. And then you start to connect the dots even more, and you find out that Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation spent millions of dollars funding genetically engineered ticks, and that Bill Gates is also a major investor in lab-grown meat. And now we've got almost 500,000 Americans living with a rare tick-borne illness that makes people allergic to meat, but not the lab-grown meat that Bill Gates has invested again. You think maybe this is not a coincidence after all? Nicholas Hulscher is an epidemiologist at the McCullough Foundation. He's been talking about this for months. Nick, great to have you back. Right now, there are 79 cases of alpha-gal syndrome in Rhode Island. They've never seen that before there. And 10 states are reporting more emergency room visits for tick bites than they've ever seen before. What do you think is really going on here?
Yeah, there's a major tick problem going on, and it appears nobody's talking about it. None of the large news outlets. This is very serious. We have to remember, a new study came out a few months ago, and they literally found alpha-gal syndrome, the incidence of alpha-gal syndrome, the allergy to red meat from the Lone Star ticks, skyrocketed up 10,000% in just 10 years. And then we looked at 2021 to 2024, it jumped up another 300%, another sharp increase. So something's going on. Something is driving these ticks.
Is that the left is blaming it on climate change? I know you're an epidemiologist, but is that for a long time, like alpha-gal, to just suddenly be everywhere in time?
No, we do not believe this is actually from climate change. In fact, we have to start looking at government-related or NGO-related laboratory activities, especially given that the Gates Foundation gave over $7 million to a biotech company to make genetically engineered ticks, as well as the U.S. Army released 270,000 radioactive labeled ticks into the wild in the 1960s.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. I think we've got the headline because people just don't know about this. 278,000 radioactively labeled ticks in Virginia, in Montana, including Lone Star ticks. And they wanted to do this to see how fast they could spread disease. So do you think there's a connection? Maybe they're doing this again.
It's very possible. We know they did it in the past. We know that these NGOs, Gates Foundation, are funding sorts of activities. And lastly, we have seen a peer-reviewed paper published in the journal Bioethics, professors from Western Michigan University. They lay out that they say it's morally required to intentionally genetically engineer Lone Star ticks to spread alpha-gal syndrome as a form of moral bioenhancement to stop people from eating meat. You can't make this up. So bioethics is now masquerading, or actually bioterrorism is masquerading as bioethics now.
And lo and behold, you mentioned the mosquito story earlier. Bill Gates has invested in that as well. He was in behind that bloody mosquito release and all that. He's into everything, old mate, and he's still gazump strike. Yeah, I don't know, bloody. I've got to give myself an uppercut now. Got to give myself an uppercut of these bloody gazump strikes.
Coming up, I've got a little bit more, background before I get to that. Now you got something cute. Are you going to play something there? Is that old?
No, that's old, mate. No, you can drop that. That's okay. I'll drop that.
All right. So let's go back to that. So there you go. Alpha-gal syndrome is an acquired red meat allergy. I believe you're okay with poultry, which appears to happen after you get a bite from ticks. And yeah, they blame it on climate change, but it's up tens of thousands of % in a few years. I don't know that the climate's changed that much. So in case you're interested in what it is, so it exists in Australia as well. It's not just in America. It's not just the Texas Lone Star tick. And in Australia, they call it mammalian meat allergy, MMA. So you've got to read what it says about it. MMA is an allergy to a sugar molecule found in most mammals, cows, pigs, and sheep. The sugar is called galactose alpha-1,3 galactose or alpha-gal. It is not found in humans. So that's the key. So there's a protein in the meat that we like to eat that is not found in people. So it's therefore theoretically possible that you can become allergic to it because you're not already protected by having it. So when humans are bitten by these ticks, our immune system is reprogrammed to defend against alpha-gal when we eat meat. Now, I wonder what's reprogramming our immune systems, Mark.
Wonder.
By the way, vaccines are designed to reprogram your immune system. That's what they do for a start. But it's interesting that old Billy Gates, just happens to be working on weaponizing ticks, which could be used to spread something that gives him a bigger market for his factory meat.
Yeah, it's amazing how old Billy keeps getting away with all this stuff without any scrutiny, huh?
He's a central figure, isn't he? But just let me make a point here. This is not just about alpha-gal. It's not just about one disease. What's clear to me here is this is a potential vector spread for all sorts of diseases. And I'm sure the powers of darkness have noticed this. So as just discussed, COVID was not a survive COVID campaign. It was a get injected campaign. And it was a get injected with mRNA campaign. If you recall, Nick Petrovsky had a non-mRNA product. They delayed it till it didn't matter anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So it wasn't just get the jab, it was get the mRNA jab was the goal there. Now, the Achilles heel of that program is that people could say no, and you and I did. This tick technology would get around that because a tick can bite you whether you consent or not. So just let me expand on that a bit. So mRNA itself is not the problem. That's the little genetic code. And in fact, you eat meat, you eat plants, they're full of mRNA. That's how they work as well. So you are eating mRNA all the time. You know, you inhale a fly, you're eating mRNA. Okay, so we're exposed to mRNA all the time, but that's via the ingested route generally. So if you eat meat full of mRNA, your stomach's full of acid, which destroys it. And mRNA is very fragile. It's not meant to last very long. So you either destroy it in your stomach or your gut just doesn't absorb it. Absorption of food is an active process. Your gut gets to decide what it takes in and what it doesn't. So you can't get mRNA medications into people's cells by having them eat it or take pills of it, because there are multiple steps that prevent it getting into the cell. And even if you ate it and it didn't get destroyed, and it did get absorbed and it got into your bloodstream and it got distributed around your body, it's still got to get into the cell. And the cell's got a cell membrane which is designed to stop things getting into it. So there are all of these barriers to natural exposure to mRNA. Really, it just doesn't happen. So they got around that during the COVID era when they were desperate to get this mRNA into you in a number of ways. First thing is they injected it to you. We've already discussed with Ted Steele that injections don't work for respiratory viruses. You make the wrong sort of immunity. But they insisted on injecting it anyway. So injecting it bypassed your gut. So it forced you to absorb it getting into your bloodstream. So the next problem they had is how do you get it into the cell? How do you get it across that cell barrier? And they did that with the delivery system, which was the little fatty globule, the lipid nanoparticle. And the lipid nanoparticle, which had the mRNA in it, protected from getting destroyed, fused with the cell and released the contents into it. So that's how they did it. That's how they got the mRNA into your cells with the COVID shots. That's what they did. So they solved all those problems in those ways. Now, ticks solve all these problems as well because you're bypassing the gut and you're injecting it straight in. And the no thank you problem goes away as well because they just do it surreptitiously.
Maybe the same with mosquitoes.
As you noted, it turns out that they've been looking at genetically modifying another form of self-spreading stealth injector, and that's the mosquito. And I'm sure that's just a coincidence as well.
Oh, coinkydink, yeah. Lots of coinkydinkies, Bruce.
So they're clearly working on insect vectors which can inject you with proteins, whether you like it or not.
Yep. It's almost like design. It's like they try and now that they try and do all these things through stealth, and they've probably done this over 10 or 20 years. But now people are waking up, and we're looking at these things and going, "No, man, this ain't right." But unfortunately, the majority of people are still a bit, blasé about it all.
Yeah, sounds legit. So, doing it this way, they're getting around the "I refuse to be injected" problem. And as noted, just so happens that our old friend Mr. W. Gates is working on weaponizing ticks, and not to cause illness. You understand, this is for totally legit purposes, like for controlling cattle ticks. But yeah, it does turn out that he seems to have a pie in that finger as well, and that's just a coincidence, I'm sure.
Of course, now, and of course, I mean, for cattle ticks, it's like, what do we need is our meat. We love you're a meat eater, Bruce. You love your meat. I mean, I wonder if it's designed to affect that as well, Bruce. Like, what is he up to, old mate Bill? That's a direct attack on your food supply, on your diet.
He's trying to murder me.
Clearly,
he's trying to starve me.
Yeah.
So it's a two-pronged attack. One is we can make the human allergic to red meat, and you saw how that Nazi doctor was saying, yeah, well, we need to get people eating less meat, and ethically, this would be a good way to do it. So there was that.
Ethically, Bruce, ethically.
Now, here's another thing, of course, I would do. If I was from the powers of darkness, I would say, this is spread by ticks. Let's just inspect your cattle and see if any of them have got ticks. Oh, we're going to have to slaughter the whole herd. One of them's got a tick.
Yeah, a bit like chickens and chicken flu. How about that, Bruce?
Well, yes, but I'm going to give you a half gazump strike there because I'm going to come back to chickens in a minute.
Bird flu, I should say, not chicken flu. Well, same thing, I guess.
Migratory Chinese ducks. Now, I did come across a surprising but promising treatment for this. And by the way, this is in Australia. Last time I did a military camp somewhere in Queensland in the bush, we were warned about tick meat allergy. That's like 5 years ago. So it's been a thing for a while. It's just apparently it's really exploding in America. And for me, becoming allergic to red meat would be a catastrophe because that is the cornerstone of my diet. And so this caught my eye in medical acupuncture. And this published report says that they had a 96% remission rate using a special form of acupuncture to the ear. In this day and age, I don't rule anything in or out. I'd certainly give it a go. And they're not just talking about putting one needle in your ear. It was actually a much more complicated thing with a subcutaneous burial and leaving it in for 3 weeks and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, it was a study of more than 100 people, and they got almost all of them got remission from a previously untreatable disease. So that's a bit of hope. So no doubt this paper will be retracted pretty quickly.
You're buried. That's right. Or fact-checked, all of the above.
Well, at least until Pfizer brings out their sort of immune fliximab, weekly injections for life to manage it, not cure it. Now, here's another idea, and this was on Robert Malone's Substack. He said poultry love ticks. So if your situation is appropriate to it, you live on a farm, you've got a backyard, you might look at installing some of these autonomous insect hunter-killer devices.
Oh, I didn't know that. So they eat the ticks, do they? They love the ticks.
Yeah.
How about
They
that?
love them.
Who would have thought that chooks would do that? No wonder they want to two-pronged attack, like you say. They want to kill the chooks with bird flu. And the very same thing that allows ticks to be eaten. Oh my gosh, these people they've had decades and decades of planning this sort of stuff, haven't they?
Yeah, they're certainly tying up all the loose ends, aren't they?
All that wonderful taxpayer money going to universities to study all this sort of stuff happens, and they do all this research, and only to use it against us, Bruce. How about that? Good on you, Bill. Love your funding, Bill Gates and others.
Now, just a caveat, if you do install the insect hunter-killer machines, you want to cull the ones that lay brown eggs. So this could be in the climate change and files, because apparently white eggs are 12.7% more carbon friendly than brown eggs. So you might want to just check what the colour the chooks are laying.
Oh, my Lord.
And that might be the first time I've ever heard something white being promoted as better.
Yeah, true. Oh, they'll can that story real quick. They'll turn it around and say that they'll realise their error.
True that. Right.
Oh Lord.
We better keep moving because it's already a long one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's all right. It's a public holiday. I'll only get in trouble with the family, but it's okay.
That's true. That's true. It is. Although my musket ran out ages ago, even in a mug.
Oh, bugger. Well, that's all right. I've got a refill one. But I was just going to say, I'm not sure if Groove Nuts has jumped off after the comment, but I do note that acknowledging, saying sorry, lads, disagreeing. He's not disagreeing about everything, but still believes that the COVID quasi-swarm has mutated into less virulent strain. It has covered regions that are still creating amyloid burden cancers. Now, I'm just talking to this really quickly myself. I've been following people like Professor Dalgleish and others who've seen the uptick in cancers that were in remission as a result, and they believe as a direct result of the vaccine. So all these long COVID stories, all this sort of stuff is all designed to take away the focus on the effect that the actual injections have. So whether or not you still got to do a bit more research, Groove Nuts, but I don't agree. I don't believe that. I do believe that the burden on the world, the health burden on the world, is a result of the injections, not as a result of what they claim was the COV-2 virus. So I do disagree with that. I appreciate you commenting and all that as well, but I just don't agree with that. I do believe that the vaccines, and I think you agree with that, and lots of others, are actually causing a lot of the health burden that's going on around the world as we see it now.
Far worse than the disease itself, because just a little bit of pathology. We know that the principal toxic agent of either the injection or the infection was the spike protein. Got numerous modes of action for that. Now, if you got naturally exposed to COVID in the wild, it's a respiratory illness. You breathe it in, it lodges in your lungs and your throat. You get a surface level infection. In most cases, none of that virus gets deeper into your system. We've discussed about the two different immune components. So you get a surface level infection, but you don't get your body absolutely flooded with spike proteins. You may not get any sort of internally because your immune mucosal defenses defeat that invasion on the beach. Now, the alternative is if you got an injection, you got a far larger dose of spike proteins injected directly into your bloodstream, effectively. So your exposure to the spike proteins was vastly larger through an injection than it was through a natural infection. And it happened like that, whereas if it were a natural infection, takes a few days to get sick, your immune system starts ramping up. So I think it's irrelevant in either case, but the toxic dose was far higher if you let them inject you with a pure concentrated, very large dose than it was if a few soldiers ran across the beach and got ashore and most of them didn't. The natural infection analogy. I think he also mentioned something to do with long COVID. He said, what's long COVID then? Okay, in a very brief answer, because I've discussed this before, long COVID is a vaccine injury. The symptoms of COVID or the symptoms of the COVID injections were both caused by the spike protein, and you got a lot more of them with the injection. Long COVID is another name for chronic fatigue syndrome, and it's been seen for decades. And it's a syndrome where perfectly healthy people, usually teenagers, suddenly get really sick. And guess what? I've had it. I had it for 2 years in my 30s, and I had it after the army filled me up with injections so I could go to East Timor. Dengue, hepatitis, everything. And I was very sick for 2 years. It felt like I had the flu every day for 2 years. I had brain fog. I had fatigue. My muscles hurt. I had swollen, glands in my neck. I'd wake up in the middle of the night in a sweat. That was a vaccine injury too. I'd just been pumped full of vaccines in my 30s because I was about to go to the tropics. Same for kids. What group of people get pumped full of vaccine? It's children from small up to teenage. Now, small kids probably can't complain about it. They might be getting it too, but we don't know. They've got to become articulate, 8-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 17-year-olds to say, I was fine and now I feel like crap. So I'm firmly convinced long COVID is chronic fatigue syndrome, which is a vaccine injury.
Yep. And glandular fever is another one like that, isn't it? Because I don't know if there's been studies have been done around glandular fever and that.
Not quite. Glandular fever, I believe, pull out some decades old information. I think it's actually a temporary T-cell lymphoma caused by a viral infection. So it's effectively, it's a self-limiting leukemia due to a virus.
Okay.
Don't quote me on that, but that's my 40-year-old memory of that.
Of when you went through all your training. Let's get back on track.
Back on track, yeah, because we don't want to do a disservice to Pride Month.
Of course not.
Now, the ever-incisive Babylon Bee has come out with this satirical piece this week telling us all the ways that the family can get together and celebrate Pride Month. Now, I'm not going to go into that story apart from saying that I did use it as a trigger. See what I did there? To think about pride in general, because pride is one of the central tenets of the whole celebrate diversity thing, isn't it? So what have we got here in Australia? So in Australia, we've got literally dozens of assorted pride festivals. So here in Victoria, here's just a few. We had Vic Bear's Bear Fest. I understand a bear is a hairy homosexual man.
Thanks for educating.
Don't Google it on the work computer. I had Midsummer Pride March, Casey Rainbow Picnic, Victoria Pride, Geelong Rainbow Festival, Bendigo Pride Festival, Pride Fair Day, Geelong Pride Film Festival, Pride Month at Pride Centre, so that's a twofer, Pride Cup, and Carols by Queer Light. And that was just a selection of them just here in my home state, my now home state of Victoria. And of course, that's in addition to the entire month of June, because Australia participates in International Pride Month, which we're now in the middle of. So not only do these proud people get a whole suite of dedicated events to be proud of, they actually get a whole month to do it as well. So that's great, I guess. Now, given there's so much attention to this, I thought, okay, let's go back to basics. What actually is pride? Now, pride is now a term that's been stolen and corrupted, just like gay. So it doesn't necessarily mean what it historically meant. But let's go back in time. So pride was indirectly mentioned in the Bible. So here's a quote from Matthew 5:16. Let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works. So it's saying you can feel good about good works that you've done. Do you get that? You've done something good and you get to be pleased about it. So it's a doing thing. And even today, if you just put pride into any old dictionary, usually the top meaning is sort of retains that historical thing. So, for example, Collins Dictionary said, pride is about a feeling of satisfaction about having done something good. So in both cases, they're about good deeds. It's not passive, it's an active thing. You have to earn the pride system, the feeling, the satisfaction, by doing something that deserves it. That's the thing. Because let's face it, if you didn't earn that pride, isn't that a form of stolen pride? If you're feeling proud of something that you haven't earned, isn't that counterfeit? Isn't that wrong? So on that, and given that the proudest people out there seem to be all the sexual minorities people, I want to just ask, is being born gay, because apparently you are born, or furry, or Aboriginal, or part Aboriginal, or whatever other innate accident of birth characteristic is that actually an achievement? Have you done something which earns you the satisfaction? I would argue that it's not. And if you haven't earned the satisfaction, if you haven't earned the pride, I think you've stolen your pride.
Yep.
So that could be a new term, stolen pride.
Yeah, well,
and just some memes to close out the story. So the one on the left, you got the student with the LGBTQXYZ tuber blasting the other student in the face, and it's captioned, "Me living my life and minding my own business." And on the right, you've got who already has Pride Month fatigue, and I don't know if that's the South Australian list, but there you go. It's the same theme, isn't it?
And that's the first of probably the 1st of June. It's like at 1 minute past midnight on the 1st of June is like, yep, I've got Pride fatigue already.
And okay, here on the left, you've got the matador being constantly attacked by the LGBTQ flag carrying bull and trying to avoid it. And on the right, you've got the Democrats, the left-wing party in America, saying, "Don't dare force religion on me," and then forcing the gay religion on everybody.
Yeah, that's right. Because it's ultimately what it's become, hasn't it? The Rainbow Corporation has become a religion, yes.
Yeah, it went from tolerance to sort of obedience, didn't it? All right, we're in the final stretch.
Yep. But just before that, obviously, I just wanted to share, Bruce. I mean, I've covered this a bit myself as well, and I just wanted to, in regards to the impact on our kids, mate, right? Because it's big on all that, and I just wanted to, on my old platform, because when I was on Substack, which I'm no longer on anymore because of their facial recognition stuff, but I did have an article about the impact of pride on our children. It followed up on an article about when adults want to have sex with children, where's the line in the sand? So if anybody is still on Substack, they can check those out. But we covered quite a bit of that, and there was a whole list. You can even find it on Wikipedia about all the days and months about how often they have it on there. But I've covered this ad nauseum myself from a Christian perspective as well. But I just want to quickly share, because I saw that you brought the PayId up. Now, the Calvary Hospital in Canberra used to be a Catholic hospital. Now, the government took it over because Catholics do not agree with abortion and euthanasia. So the government decided to take them over. And so now they took away the cross from the Calvary Hospital, which was Catholic owned. And regardless of what you think about Catholics, I'm not getting into that discussion about that at all. But now this is what they're flying at their service desk is there's no Australian flag there, and there's nothing else in regards to the Christian cross or whatever. But you see the LGBTIQ flag, the Torres Strait Islander, and the Aboriginal flag, but no Australian flag as well. So this is well and truly socialist Marxism. This is all just designed to turn us away from the Christian faith that built this country. And good on you, Lyle Shelton, for continuing to be brave and speaking out into all of this sort of stuff as well. So, but anyway, that's just me.
I'm hoping they've renamed it, because that's not a Calvary anymore.
It's definitely not a Calvary. It's I don't know. Maybe we can have a contest, Bruce, to see who comes up with a new label for that abomination of a service now. But anyway.
Yeah. All right. Final run home. So this is a story from California about the effects of the Gulf War on fuel supplies. And it caught my eye because you could be describing Australia and South Australia in it. So the story says that California is effectively a fuel island. Because of the mountains and so forth, almost all the fuel that comes into California comes in by tanker landing on the west coast. There aren't connections to the rest of America. So they call that a fuel island. And it says that this is a result of deliberate government green policy rather than geography, and predicts that this is going to hurt very badly before the Gulf War finally plays out. So here's some text from the story. California has become an energy island because there are no pipelines over the Sierra Nevada, the mountains, to connect the state to the rest of the country. This means California must rely almost entirely on its shrinking in-state refineries plus expensive tanker imports. It's a self-inflicted disaster caused by years of left-wing climate policies that have deliberately shut down refineries and pipelines across the Golden State. So California is an artificial island. Australia is a real island. But apart from that could all be true of Australia, and so could the next bit. So what else to say? Alongside the cheering of delusional climate cultists, California has systematically dismantled its own oil refining capacity. 2 refineries left in Australia. These closures are not... Yes, these closures are not accidental. They are the direct result of a regulatory environment that treats fossil fuel production as sin. Every sector will feel the pain. Amazon deliveries will slow, construction projects will halt, the agricultural sector, already reeling from fertiliser costs, will face a quadruple whammy of high diesel, scarce fertiliser, extreme weather and global trade disruptions. And this is why I keep saying every week it ain't over in the Gulf. And I think the media and our governments are either blissfully unaware of the freight train that's steaming at us, or they're aware and they're just lying about it to avoid scaring the horses for as long as possible.
The second one, I reckon, mate, because you can't be that stupid. Surely not. No. I'm not the brightest. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed, as I've openly admitted before. But these people are just dead set. You can't be this kind of stupid. Surely you can't.
Can't be that stupid. Yeah. Even if you are that stupid, surely you got more rat cunning than to, torch your politics for that. But I've come to the realisation over the last few weeks, every week I turn up and I say the Strait of Hormuz is still closed, the Israelis are still breaking the ceasefire, the Americans are still blockading, blah, blah, blah. They're still drawing down their fuel reserves, which they shouldn't be doing, and everybody's ignoring it. I'm coming to the conclusions this has to be deliberate. It has to be a deliberate destruction of that oil supply to the West.
Yep.
They couldn't just be prolonging it every week in exactly the same pattern for nothing. This has to be what they want.
Yeah, well, the new industrial revolution, Bruce. The fourth industrial revolution. We got to have the reshaping of our markets, the reshaping of our monetary supply, the reshaping of everything, the reduction of the human race in the world from 8 billion, which is obviously 6 billion too many apparently. So, I mean, people have been talking about this for a long time, Bruce. I think it's starting to make sense, isn't it?
Western values will be tested to the limit.
That's an interesting comment, isn't it? You will be happy, Western? And you are. No wonder. Well,
all right. So, did that story ring any bells with you, Mark? Like the deliberate destruction of energy infrastructure all coming home to roost? Does that sort of?
Of course. I mean, look at South Australia. I mean, I've done episodes myself of South Australia, how far advanced we are into the whole AI and the whole lot. I mean, we were one of the states that have got a desalination plant. We got rid of the oil manufacturing facility we had in South Australia. We also blew up our Stanvac oil manufacturing. We blew up our coal-fired fire station. We're one of the states that's well in advance of renewable energy and putting batteries and solar panels and wind farms. I mean, and Mali seems to be continuing to get money and support from and commentary from WF-like figures and stuff. You just got to wonder what's at stake in our state here, Bruce. But I hear masonry is strong over here too, mate.
All right.
Or did I just say that out loud on the program? I don't know. I might get knocked off now.
All right. Now, by the way, South Australia blew up their last coal station 10 years ago just to prevent any hope of ever restarting it, which countries in Europe and some states of the US are doing. And at the time, State Treasurer Tom Koutsantonis, who I believe is still the Treasurer, and I believe has just brought down another massive deficit budget for you, said that blowing up the cheap power station would not result in power price rises, saying renewables would fill the gap. Was he right, Mark? Are your power prices cheaper than they were 10 years ago?
No, absolutely not. Not even with the promised $175 reduction, Bruce, because that went straight to the power companies, But their taxpayer money. You there in Victoria paid part of that too, Bruce.
You're welcome. All right, let's take it out with this miscellaneous story. So, I could have put this in MISC, or I could have put it in the no shit Sherlock files with this privacy expert documenting how the Microsoft operating system is now monitoring every keystroke that you make and screenshotting everything that you do. So what does it say? Windows is no longer simply an operating system, but a surveillance platform designed to extract data from every user. From telemetry that can't be turned off to a built-in screenshot keylogger called Recall, Microsoft has made spying a core feature. They now gather diagnostics, browsing habits, location data, and even voice recordings, all under the guise of improving your experience. What else? The most egregious example is Windows Recall, a feature that takes screenshots every few seconds of everything you do. Passwords, bank details, private conversations. Critics call it spyware, and I agree. A feature that records your every move without knowledge is the definition of surveillance. Or to put it in summary, Billy Gates is part of the Big Brother network, and they're watching you all the time. So, yep, even when you're using net banking and you type your password on the screen, every chance they'll screenshot that and they know what your password is. And if they don't screenshot it, of course, they keylog it. They know what keys you pushed.
Yep.
They are watching everything you do. All right. And furthermore, it's not just Microsoft, it's their government partners, obviously, because this story tells us that the British police, which means all police, now have this ability.
All right. Let's see what you got here, brother.
So you see this device right here? This is a device that the police have got in the UK that can literally download any data that they want from your phone without a password. And we're talking even the encrypted ones like WhatsApp.
Call logs, chats, cookies, device notifications, emails, instant messages, passwords.
You can see deleted conversations on encrypted apps like WhatsApp and Signal. Millie's deleted web browsing history.
Hopefully nothing too embarrassing.
Contact information for everyone she's spoken to, the locations of all her calls.
And you can see other people's phone numbers. So obviously got more.
Can you see their messages to you?
Yeah.
So the police are getting information about people you've contacted. Exactly. Have nothing to do with the arrest that might have happened.
Exactly, and who may have contacted me securely about work using Signal. I think the most worrying is that this can happen on arrest, even when charges are never even brought. It can also happen to witnesses and to victims. There seems to be nothing clear in terms of deletion, so it seems like the police can effectively do what they want when they obtain your phone.
It's a scary amount of information. It's also so useful for the police. This is going to be so important in investigations.
Of course. The trouble is, at the moment, you don't need a warrant to obtain any of this. There has to be a degree of involvement of checks and balances that says, well, do you know what, in this case, it's not necessary or proportionate. You don't need this person's phone.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, interesting stuff, that, mate.
And my own personal experience, when I was arrested in Canberra, when you get processed into the jail, they fingerprint you and DNA swab you and photograph you and all those sorts of things. And now I was subsequently found not guilty, which means I'm not a criminal, which means all that stuff has to be destroyed. So about 18 months after I was found not guilty, I wrote to the police minister and said, can you confirm that my biometric data has been deleted, given I was found not guilty? And the police minister said, you need to ask the police that. And I said, no, I'm asking you that because the police have not answered that question. I've asked them that and they've refused to answer it. How about you do your job and find out for me? So a few weeks went by and then I got a letter that said, yep, the police commissioner can confirm that we deleted your data last week.
Okay,
Last week.
Nice. Wow, that's taken a little while.
After 18 months, they went, oh, shit, better delete that one, if they really did.
That's right. How are you ever going to know? I mean, the dark web's probably got, all your information's probably on the dark web there anyway, Bruce.
Anyone who got DNA, got COVID swabbed has probably got a DNA record too. That would have been the perfect way to do
it. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I might write to Josh Teague and see whether that's actually true.
Well, he's been re-elected, Bruce, so let's see if he might try and get you, have the police sent around to you at Victoria from South Australia. He might talk to his colleagues, although he's not he's not, what was he, Attorney General?
Attorney General.
Towards the end. Yeah. Hey, Josh T, good if you're watching, mate. Nice to see you.
No worries. All right, so my take home from that is that the era of privacy is gone. Doesn't matter how hard you try, your information is being so-called scraped in so many ways. Your car number plates are being read, you're being face wrecked when you go into Bunnings, etc., etc., etc. So I think it's futile to expect that you can have privacy anymore. unless you take specific measures to ensure that you do. And I take a leaf out of the Taliban's book, The Cure for High Technology is Low Technology. So the Taliban in Afghanistan countered the ubiquitous surveillance that the US did with drones and electronic eavesdropping and so forth by doing nothing electronically. So they communicated by passing written messages or writing things down or speaking face to face. Now, that's not practical for a modern life, but if you want to do something in private, I think that's what you got to do from now on. You've got to have no phones, no computers, no car listening, no television listening. You need to actually go somewhere where there is no electronic eavesdropping whatsoever. And remember, of course, Elon Musk's got tens of thousands of satellites up there. Who knows how many have got cameras that are looking down? He's got global coverage of the whole Earth for internet. How many of them have got cameras? Maybe they've got global coverage of video of the surface of the Earth. And infrared light and radar to go through clouds. It may well be that you're being surveilled everywhere, even in that setting.
Well, Bruce, I went to Sydney recently on Friday, actually, and for a bit of an anniversary thing from my work. And I took an Uber from the airport into the city and rode in a BYD electric vehicle. And the guy was showing me on the screen there, and I mean, this BYD is one thing. I mean, you got Teslas, you got so many of them. But when he brought up the screen about this, we were talking about satellite imagery and being able to control them. It actually brought up this perfect image of his car, but then also the traffic beside him in real time.
Real time.
And it was in real time. So I was watching a car go past us, and in real time, that car going past us was on that screen in that electric vehicle.
Well, like I say, assume you don't have privacy unless you specifically take measures to provide it.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
On that happy note, let me finish with a couple of memes. So this one was from Robert Malone's Sunday Funnies. I've just been on the Weight Watchers website and it asked me if I accept cookies.
Nice. Yep.
And this one, fun fact, you can't be a trans woman unless you are a male.
Oh, yeah, well, yep. Okay.
That's not hateful, is it?
No.
Or it could be, it's factual. That's probably one of the criteria for hate.
Yeah, true. We don't mean to, be hurtful to people, but we're just, facts hurt feelings, apparently.
Yeah, there we go. So that's a rather long one. Only a few days ago, I'm thinking, gee, you're a bit thin on content this week. And look at that.
No, I think we did all right, brother. Plus, I ad-libbed a bit, chucked a bit in there, so it was always going to be a long one. And lo and behold, we're only 14 minutes before the Cafe Lockdown show comes out, so we really are pushing it again. But look, it's been a lot of fun, mate. I've really enjoyed it. Had a good bit of banter, seen a good little bit of comments coming in. And look, if I'm not sure if any trans people are watching our show, they'd probably get too offended, but maybe some LGBT people are. No mean defense. As a Christian, I don't hate anybody. I love my fellow man regardless of where you are, but I do intrinsically believe in a creator God, and I do believe in male and female. I believe male and female should be married and create children. I don't mean to hurt you in any way, shape or form. I don't hate you. I dislike immensely the religion that is behind the corporation, the Rainbow Corporation, and I will continue to call that out. It does not mean that I actually dislike you as a human being. And just on a personal note, my uncle was gay. He died of AIDS from a lover that wasn't faithful to him. He was an amazing human being. He's my mum's brother, and really had a lot of time for him. And unfortunately, that's what happened. So at the end of the day, we need to continue to talk truth, and my truth is, and my belief is, as a Christian, my belief is in Jesus Christ. As a Trinitarian, I believe in God, Jesus, Holy Spirit, 3 in 1, and that is how I have my worldview. So I don't mean to upset you. I do love you as my fellow human being, but I will continue to speak out against the things that kind of try to undermine our humanity.
And just because I disagree with you doesn't mean I hate you.
Yep.
My two dearest neighbours back in the Adelaide Hills when I lived there was an elderly gay couple, probably in late 70s. They were my neighbours for 10 plus years. Fantastic. And I remember when the gay marriage thing came around, they said, what's your stance on gay marriage? I said, it's bullshit, doesn't exist. And they said, if we got married, would you come? I said, of course. Of course I would. Yeah. I don't agree it exists, but hell, if you invite me to your wedding, of course I'm coming.
Yep. It's about sharing your love for fellow humanity at the end of the day. And obviously some people will see that differently in regards to, attending and all that. But, at the end of the day, it's not about the individual person. It's about the agendas that have mostly been driven by ulterior motives. And as I've articulated in an article I just wrote recently about who targets the church, people like John Stryker and his organisation that's got billions of dollars actually funding a lot of the influences that headed towards our Sex Discrimination Act. So, so there is people that are actively involved in all that. So, but anyway, regardless of where you stand, I will always say I'm Christian, and God bless everybody for coming and keep joining. People have followed our show for 111 episodes. People know where I stand on my worldview, and I appreciate people still jumping on, and I appreciate you as an agnostic, my brother, but I'm so grateful that you are reading the Bible that I sent you. So that's I'm grateful for that, the fact that you're even just looking at that. So thank you.
Have you got a smaller one?
Yeah, I could have just sent you the New Testament, mate, but that wouldn't have been enough for you, mate. But anyway, God bless you. Jesus is the fulfillment of the Old Testament, but that's another conversation there. Anyway, thanks again. Thanks for everybody that continues to jump on and join and share their comments and give us something to think about while we're talking. And anyway, 10 minutes before the next show comes on Cafe Lockdown, we better get out of here. So good on you. God bless. See ya.
Catch you then. Cheers.
To fight again for that already burned, he was driven towards the flames. All the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.